review the minutes of our previous meeting. I have a motion, a resolution moved by member Hazelton, seconded by member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minutes of February 16, 2024 as circulated. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The resolution is approved. The motion is carried. And we're not going to adopt the agenda. So, Madam Secretary, would you explain our circulation, please?
Notice of each of the applications was sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 meters, 500 meters, or 800 meters, and those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the application. The notices were sent at least 20 days prior to this morning's meeting. Included in each notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the application and a key map showing the location of the property. Other relevant information may have also been provided. These circulations were provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act 1990.
Excuse me, I don't know if you can hear me, but I can't hear you. Your audio clicks in and out.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Thank you. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Georgian Bay hereby defers hearing application B24-01 to April 12, 2024. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried. And our next application is actually for 3 consents for the same property. To the planner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Mr. Chair and members of committee. This morning we have 3 consent applications before you for consideration: B2332, B2333, and B2334. The property being Lot 37, Concession 10 in our township on Baxter Loop Lane. As you can see on this map overall here, that the property is a very large piece of property. It's approximately 40.47 hectares total area. And 4.7 hectares is the portion up in this top. The northwest corner of the property is where the proposed lots are going to be located. So the applications for consent were submitted following a pre-application consultation with the township. The large area of the property, as you can see on the mapping, is part of an identified provincially significant wetland. The portion of Baxter Loop Road that I'm pointing to here on the screen that traverses the property is in fact in the ownership still of the applicant and was never transferred to the township. So in order to consider the creation of the new parcels, each lot must have frontage on a year-round municipally maintained road. So this is the Baxter Loop Road, as you can see where my pointer is on there, that traverses the property. This is looking down the road towards where the lots are located. And Mr. Cartier provided me with some location pictures that you also see here of where the lots will be located. So the proposed development is for 3 new residential parcels and 1 retained lot. Each lot will have a lot area of anywhere from 0.83 hectares up to 1.68 hectares, which is the retained parcel. And the lot frontages will range from 60 meters up to 170 meters. An environmental impact study was completed by Burke's Natural Heritage Consultants and peer reviewed by Hutchinson Environmental. As a result of the environmental impact study, a zoning bylaw amendment will be required to rezone the new lots as residential type 1, residential type 1 holding, and environmental protection type 1 exception, as per the requirements in the environmental impact study. The proposed development is in conformity with the policies of the District of Muskoka official plan and the Township of Georgian Bay official plan. And as the new lots are subject to the requirement of a zoning bylaw amendment, the development will be in conformity with the zoning bylaw as amended. Staff are recommending approval of the applications based on a review of the relevant policies, as the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement, meets the intent of the District of Muskoka official plan, Township of Georgian Bay official plan, and will be in conformity with the zoning bylaw upon the amendment being approved by council. At this time, staff are recommending an additional condition that was not included in my staff report relating to the hydrogeological study. At the present time, the hydrogeological study has been peer reviewed by Hutchinson Environmental and has been forwarded back to the applicant's agent, who are looking into making some amendments to the study based on the comments by Hutchinson. Therefore, I am recommending an additional condition that the hydrogeological study receive clearance from Hutchinson Environmental, the peer reviewers for the township, prior to the issuance of the certificate of official. Staff are of the opinion that the applications have appropriate regard to Section 5124 of the Planning Act and do represent good planning.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant present, and do they wish to add anything to the planner's comments? Thank you. Has there been any correspondence in this application?
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Andrew Pascuzzo. I'm a registered professional planner participating virtually on behalf of the owner of the property, Vincent Cartier. I believe Vince may be in attendance in the council chambers. I think I may have just heard his voice. You can bear with me for a second. I'm just going to try to share my screen. Is everybody able to see my screen?
Yes.
So Deb's already done a detailed description of the proposed applications before you. Obviously, I'm here today in support of the applications. Read through the staff report and the recommendations, read through the proposed conditions, and obviously we're here, Vince and I, obviously hoping that you will conditionally approve the consents. The project team also consists of a hydrogeological study, Gaiman Consulting. Capes Engineering was retained to do a conceptual drainage and grading plan, and as was indicated, an environmental impact study was completed by Burke's Environmental. Everyone has seen the image of the property, and I just wanted to provide a little bit more detail on the lot fabric and why some may wonder why the kind of the irregular shape of some of the lots and how we came up with the lot fabric. It's my respectful submission that it's based on a number of factors, including the environmental constraints, which came out of the EIS. There are a number of rock barrens that are seen throughout the figure here. They're kind of in a light beige color, and they have a setback associated with them. And there's also a swamp area in the northern section of the property, which is to the east or to the right of this image. And then obviously there were some bat habitat issues as well, which were dealt with through the environmental review. Lot size was another factor with regard to the hydrogeological study. There were some zoning requirements, obviously, with regard to lot frontage and property size, and then drainage was another factor, and then locating septic systems and wells on the property. So that's the reason for the design. Here's a list of kind of the process we've been through, which consists of pre-consultation back in the spring of 2023. Throughout 2023, field work was completed. A first submission occurred in October of last year. There was some back and forth between staff. The council may recall that I did do a presentation about Baxter Loop Road and the ownership of it. We met with staff later in December. The notice of complete application occurred in January. And then since then, we've obviously been working with staff and the peer review consultants to clear any concerns that may come up. I just wanted to add one comment with regard to the Hydro G peer review. You received those comments earlier this week. The Hydro G consultant is currently reviewing them, and the Coles Notes version of his response is the following. So I spoke to the consultant, and in short, it's his opinion that the septic systems can be engineered appropriately by paying for an advanced system. We can provide tertiary treatment and nitrate reduction to improve the quality of the effluent. So the calculations will be provided at a later date to the peer review consultants, and it is we are confident that that condition can be cleared. Obviously, the next step in this process after the public meeting today will be clearing the condition of the zoning bylaw amendment. And there are also a number of other conditions, which most importantly from Vince and I's opinion is the dedication of Baxter Loop Road and the approval of the zoning bylaw at council. So I'm obviously here to listen to any comments or concerns that may come from public or any of the members of the committee. I'm happy to respond at that time. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you very much for those comments. Madam Secretary, has there been any correspondence in this application?
One letter of no objection was received from the District of Muskoka, subject to the requirements of the EIS becoming incorporated into the decision. One letter of no concerns was received from Hydro One. One letter was received from the Director of Operations, recommending the transfer of the 20-meter road allowance known as Baxter Road. And lastly, one letter of no objection was received from Beth and Glenn Heitzman.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public present that has a question or comment on this application? Yes, if you're online, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And again, if you are a member and are online, please indicate by raising your hand if you have a question. And I'm going to call you. I can't see them. Okay, so no one has their hand up. Are there any questions or comments from those present? Member Predko, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. My question is to the planner, and it's with really regards to the ownership of Baxter Loop, and what will the process and timing be on that? Is that something that would have been done prior to the severance generally, or is that is this an unusual situation?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Preco, this is a very unique situation, as this issue wouldn't have come up unless Mr. Cartier had applied for the severances. So, I mean, this is a situation where he needs that road to be an open municipal road in order to have lot frontages. If Mr. Cartier had not applied for these consents, of course, it would have been a non-issue and we wouldn't have known that we didn't own Baxter Loop Road. So at this time, I can turn it over actually to the clerk, because she's here and she would be the one that would be dealing with the road transfer and be coming before council. So.
Is there anything further you need, Mr. Predko, on that?
No, just clarification that the ownership of the road isn't other than the conditions, really doesn't prevent the severance of these lots today. I know we still have conditions, but otherwise it's fine for us to approve.
That's correct. And also the fact that Mr. Cartier does have 2 years to fulfill the conditions. So there is quite a bit of time in order to fulfill them and, even to be before council. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Member Rivet.
Thank you. Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I just want to know, I realize the assessments are done. Do any of them include potable water? Is there water at these lots? They're all wells? Okay. And that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, I will read the resolutions. And I might say here, there's 3 lots that are, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Member Hazelton, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'd like to address a question to our planner. In condition number 6 of these packages, under the be it resolved, you're down to number 6, it talks about that the owner pay 5% in lieu of parkland dedication for the severed lands in accordance with the Planning Act. So this is a bit of a unique situation, I think, from what I've understood, that the owner is essentially giving the township 2.5 acres of land, which is represented by the road. I'm wondering, is it reasonable for us to ask him to first give us the land and then in addition pay that parkland dedication, which would be a normal thing, but in a normal environment, you're not giving the township 2.5 acres of land.
Through you, Mr. Chair. As you know, that's a standard condition under the Planning Act in regards to cash in lieu of parkland. However, I mean, that's not something that we could really get into here. This is a council decision that I'm just going by standard conditions that are put on consents. And anything further than that should be discussed at council because it would be a council decision to waive anything to that effect.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further hands up? Okay, I will read the resolution. And as mentioned before, we have 3 consent applications here together. They are basically all the same. I have a lengthy list of resolutions and I'm just going to read it once. And the difference between each of these is the one is for lot 1, the other is for lot 2, and the third one, of course, is lot 3. So it is moved by Member Predko, seconded by Member Schmidt. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby grants provisional approval to consent application B 23-32, 33, and 34 for the severance of lots 1, 2, and 3 as shown on Schedule A attached to this decision and subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. 2, that this decision applies only to the lot as indicated in Schedule A, attached to and forming part of this decision. The lot shall substantially conform with Schedule A. 3, that a reference plan survey that is registered be completed and a digital copy and hard copy be filed with the Township Planning Department, or an exemption from the reference plan be received from the registrar. Number 4, that pursuant to Section 53, subsection 42 of the Planning Act, that the certificate of consent be affixed to the deed within 2 years of the giving of notice of decision. Note that Section 5343 of the Planning Act requires that the transaction approved by this consent must be carried out within 2 years of the issuance of the certificate. Number 5, that the clerk of the township provide written confirmation that a zoning bylaw amendment is in force and effect and to designate and rezone portions of the subject lands, to recognize recommendations in the environmental impact study prepared by Berks Natural History Heritage Consultants dated September 2023. Number 6, that the owner pay 5% in lieu of parkland dedication for the severed lands in accordance with Section 51, subsection 1 of the Planning Act and the Township of Georgian Bay bylaw number 88-74. The township shall retain an appraiser at the owner's expense to prepare an appraisal, or the owner may retain an appraiser of their own choosing, subject to the required qualifications to undertake the required appraisal. And number 7, that the owner enter a consent application agreement with the town in accordance with section 51, subsection 26 of the Planning Act to implement the recommendations of the environmental impact study prepared by Burke's Natural Heritage Consultants dated September 23 as amended. The peer review and the peer review response. And number 8, that the hydrogeological study received clearance from Hutchison Environmental and the peer reviewers for the town prior to the issuance of the certificate of official. And 9, that the applicant shall, in a manner and design to the satisfaction of the township, transfer to the township a 20-meter wide right-of-way containing the traveled portion of Baxter Loop Road that traverses the property to provide year-round municipal road access for the newly created parcels. And finally, number 10, the conditions set out herein shall be completed within 2 years of the date of decision of the committee. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
Sorry, Chair, Mr. Chair, I'm reading through the resolution as per the report, and I only have 9 items, and you've listed 10. And I think there. Thank you. Missed that line. Excuse me.
Thank you, Member Jarrett. So again, you should read this over again, maybe. All those in favor of approval of this consent application, please signify by raising your hand. And 2 online. Okay. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next application is a minor variance application, number A23-50 for 386 Corryvale Road. To the planner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As stated, this application is A2350, the property being 386 Corryvale Road. The owners are Yolanta and Bill McKay. As you can see on this location map that I've got up on the screen, this is the subject property, which does abut onto Lamb Bay, which is identified as being a provincially significant wetland by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. An application for a minor variance was received by the township in January as a result of consultation with planning staff. The owners wish to demolish the existing cottage and construct a new dwelling in the pretty much in the exact same footprint, and they want to retain the existing mechanical room and build above that. The proposed dwelling will not be any closer to the high water mark than the existing dwelling. As you can see in the pictures on the screen, this is the existing dwelling as it stands right now. And it has been noted that there are a number of additional buildings on the property. Upon site visit, I did notice as well that there are additional buildings that we weren't made aware of, including a boathouse. So this is the existing situation as it stands right now. Where my cursor is here is building number 1, which is the existing dwelling, which is to be removed and rebuilt. Building number 2 is a wood cabin or sleeping cabin, which is to be retained. There's an existing garage here, which apparently is just for a garage and storage above. And building number 3 down here is a sleeping cabin that is also to be removed. But as you'll note, and I'm sure upon site visit, you did notice that there was a boathouse as well, which is not shown on the survey that was provided by the applicant. So what they're proposing is it'd be not encroaching any further to the high water mark than the existing structure. The existing dwelling has a gross floor area of 118.916 square meters, and the new dwelling is to be approximately 246 square meters, which is an increase of 108% in the gross floor area. The existing dwelling is in width is 6.096 meters, and the new dwelling is to be 12.8 meters, which is an increase of 110%. So the reconstruction and expansion of existing detached dwelling will be evaluated under the tests on section 45.2 of the Planning Act. The zoning bylaw section 411EI1, the maximum permitted increase in the existing dwelling's gross floor area is 25%. And as stated, the applicant is proposing 108%. Section 411E2, maximum permitted increase in width of the existing dwelling cannot exceed 20. And the applicant is proposing 110% increase in width. So as the subject property abuts a PSW, an erosion and sediment control plan is being recommended as a condition of approval. I'm also recommending that some of the vegetation along the shoreline be restored. A minimum of 20 square meters be returned to its natural state by planting native trees and shrubs as a condition of approval. Staff are recommending approval of the application based on a review of the relevant policies, as the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement and does meet section 45(2) of the Planning Act and does represent good planning. If any questions relating to the building, our chief building official is here this morning, and I'm sure she could answer any questions for you.
Okay, thank you. Has there been any correspondence on this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Okay. Is the applicant present or online, and would they like to add any additional information to what's been presented by the planner? Okay, I understand the applicant is online but has nothing to offer. Okay, is there any member of the public present or online that'd like to comment on this application? Okay, seeing none here. Sorry, we do have, and if you wouldn't mind, if we come up to the microphone, you should be able to push a little button and the red light will come on, and identify yourself with your name and address for the record.
My name is Terry Lee. I'm across the bay from this application. I'm a little bit all confused on this. Within 400 to 800 meters of this new proposal, there are 4 other properties. One that, because of the setbacks, can't even get a building permit on his property. Another one, because it's an island and setbacks, they could, they're on a, they have 1 bedroom and a living room dinette, and they couldn't expand on that. Another one who's right on the water, similar to this, could only get the 20% increase. And then right beside me and across from this piece of property, in order to fulfill all the requirements, they tore down the building and went to the bylaw setbacks on that piece of property. So I'm not understanding why we have to increase this great big huge cottage that's going to be right on the water, when the property is big enough that that building could be put to the setbacks, and all the shoreline and everything would be back to normal anyway. So that's all I have to say on the matter.
Okay, and I'm sorry, what is your address, sir?
223 Lakeview Drive.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other member of the public that wishes to comment on this application, either in person or online? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public portion of this application and bring it before the committee for any questions or comments. And do we have any questions or comments from the committee? Member Jarvis, please.
Thank you. Deb, in the calculation for the GFA, is there in this area a requirement that the GFA percentage be a portion of the property, or is it just, or is that not part of this area?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's based on the lot frontage and also the setback.
Okay, and so that'd be total GFA, right? That'd be all buildings? And-
No, just the dwelling that we're replacing.
Okay, so we don't include, for instance, the boathouse and the cabins as part
No,
of the
that's
GFA?
just for lot area.
Okay, and they both, and all that together, massing on the lot is not an issue?
That's correct.
Okay, that's one question. I see there's a shore road allowance. I presume that's owned by the applicant?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it is.
Okay, my only comment is I think that as per the comments from the floor, it'd be nice if these people can, when they are that close to the water, and it is possible to move things back, they should be making every effort to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Jarvis. Are there any other questions or comments? Member Matthews?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kane, the garage that's there clearly looks like there's living quarters above. There's a satellite dish on top on the side of the garage. Are we 100% certain that there are no living accommodations there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can only go by what the applicant has told me, and according to the applicant, it is storage only. If Kaylee knows any more than that, then
I personally have concerns about the massive increase over what is required. And our hands are somewhat tied because you're putting it through 45-2, right? So I have serious concerns about the size of this application. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Member Predko, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I guess, not sure if it's a question to the planner or the building department, but you know, I would share the concern that the proximity to the water and the apparent flat nature of the property, it doesn't look like it would be unreasonable to move it back towards the 20-meter setback line. But I am curious, we haven't noted on this survey that's been provided the location of the septic, and do we know where that is, and would that be an impediment to moving the dwelling?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not actually sure right at this point, but that would be looked at during the actual building permit review.
But if that might be an issue with regards to the location of the dwelling and approval of the minor variance, it wouldn't be taken into consideration.
Well, if it wasn't, I can look and see, because I would have
Yeah.
probably commented on it, but if it's not on the site plan, kind of hard to comment on it right now.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question. That if I understand our chief building official, does that application get reviewed by the building department before it goes to planning for planning approval? Does it get reviewed? It goes after. Is that the step? And if the in order to get a building permit, the septic requirements have to be met. Is that correct?
When they get to the point of if this is approved and then they apply for a permit, that's when normally we do our review. After it's been through planning and planning is signed off on the permit itself, then it comes to us, and that is part of the building permit review.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for the clarification on that. Are there any other questions? Member Rivet, please.
Yes, thank you. The property looks different from the survey because it's missing the boathouse and it's missing that one sleeping cabin on the right side of the property as you're looking at it. For committee members, I go back to what our obligation is, and in all cases, we look at the zoning, and one particular requirement is when the setbacks are less than the 20 meters. In this case, the setback is only 8.5 meters from the shoreline, and you know, we're supposed to look every change when it doesn't conform is to look for a net gain. So when I look at this property and at the extent of the massing so close to the shore and how much larger this is, I don't see an explanation for the need to continue the building in this current footprint when it's going to be so much bigger. I mean, beyond the 25%, I don't understand why we're not being told why the building can't be moved to meet the setback. I would like to see this the building moved back. I know that one sleeping cabin will be gone, but considering the size of this build and the massing with the sleeping cabin and the already existing boathouse, I would not approve this because I don't understand the reason not to move it back, there's nothing on the topography that would restrict this to realize a net gain and increase the setback. So I'm not in favor of this application because I don't understand why the building isn't being moved to meet the setbacks and avoid some of the variances. And there's concern from one neighbor as well, who's wanting more trees planted. The other thing is, I don't know about revegetating the shoreline. It's hard to see in the snow. I don't know how long it's been in the condition that it's in, or even if planting is even feasible, if it's going to work for any net gains. Don't understand it. It's so low and shallow there. You know, any flooding might wash away any planting. So I don't see the need for that. To me, that's not going to make or break it for me. I want to see why we have to have it so close to the shore when it could easily be moved back and avoid all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Rivet. I see Member Hazelton has his hand up. Do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I have a question for the planner. So Deb, if the applicant here were choosing to build with the proper setback, would the size of what they're planning to build be allowed? Or would they need to get a variance for the size?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, they wouldn't need a variance for size. Because we're basing this on section 45(2) to make the decision. Instead of, it would be, decision would be made under 45(1) if any reductions were being requested.
Okay.
However, they would not need it if they meet the 20-meter setback.
Okay, well, I have to confess, first of all, I'm delighted that Mr. Lee showed up. He called me yesterday. I asked him to send in an email, but he claimed that he wasn't particularly email savvy. So sadly, our clerk doesn't have a copy of the concerns, but it's good that he showed up, and I think he's representing at least two other neighbors of concern on this matter. I just find, as with the other councillors who have spoken, that and I'm going to use the expression that I've heard from others in the past: if you can, you should. And in this case, I believe, from everything I've heard, he can move it back. He should move it back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments for members of the committee? I see that oh yes, Member Matthew.
Question, if I may, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I guess to Ms. McCabe, if we were to defer this and on the proviso that they move it back, and you said that would have to go under 45(1), is that a whole new application, or can it fall under the umbrella of this one?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, it would just be an amended application. I mean, I would have to recirculate, obviously, but if there was still asking for a reduction in the setback. But I mean, it's doable under the same application. If I may, Mr. Chair, I have somewhat of a response to Member Rivet's comment about moving it back, and I totally get what you're saying. The justification behind where it's located is the fact that there's a very established mechanical room underneath the existing cottage right now, like off to the side and under it, and they want to utilize that without having to move everything from the mechanical room. Just connect this existing mechanical room into the new structure. That was the justification I was given.
I'm not sure that that's the only concern here. I do understand that the applicant is online and wishes to add some comments. So if you're there, please identify yourself and go ahead. Okay. Can you hear us, Ms. McKay? Because we can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think technology is sliding away from me. Good morning, Mr. Chair. There's few reasons why we would like to build new structure on basically footprint of the existing structure. in order for us to move this cottage back to meet the setback of 20 meters, we would have to basically get rid of some rock. There's a rock on this side of our property where the cottage would have to go. Also, we would have to remove some pretty mature trees that we would like to preserve on the property. So we would have to dynamite some rock. Otherwise, we would have to build this cottage that will be very high. So that's basically why we apply for the variance, because we would like to preserve the trees on the property, and we don't want to build this cottage very high or blast the rock. So those are the reasons. And to answer the question about the septic we put in, it's been inspected, and the septic has been sized for actually 2 full-size cottages. So I don't think septic would be a problem, and the location of the septic is basically in front of the garage. So the cottage location, proposed cottage location, would not have impact on the septic on this property.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? All right, then I'm sorry, did you have a question?
Thank you,
I
Mr.
didn't see your
Chairman.
hand up.
That's
Sorry.
okay. I just put it up. Derek Whitlib, Director of Planning. Just some general comments, some of which the committee may find useful and towards applying towards this application. The principle of net gain, certainly that's expressed in the township's official plan. But in this case, because it's a section 45(2) application, expansion, enlargement of a non-conforming use, conformity with the general purpose and intent to the official plan is not a test. So just have to be careful in terms of if that's going to be a consideration, keeping in mind that official plan policy cannot specifically be applied as a test here. We're limited to the 2 tests under section 45(2) in terms of the appropriateness of the development for the property and any impacts on the surrounding area. The other one, just a general comment in terms of the concept about, I think I heard it expressed as if they can, they should. Just want the committee to keep in mind generally that the demonstration of a hardship or a constraint in order to justify a variance is not a test under the Planning Act. So it is not necessary for an applicant to demonstrate that they're forced into a variance situation because of some other constraint. They do have the ability to apply for a variance, even if there are no other constraints, only for the reason that that's their preferred site. Now, that information, whether or not there is a constraint, can certainly help inform the committee's decision and their thinking towards landing at a decision, but it's not a test under the Planning Act. Those are my comments, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And just before we read the resolution, sorry. Oh, Member Schmidt. That's not how you raise your hand. You have to hit that little button there, buddy. Okay, go ahead.
Through you, Chair. I just want to clarify: is this cottage going to remain a bungalow, or
Yes.
is it going up?
No, the whole consent of applying for the variance, we would like to keep this cottage low key that blends into the area. It's not a monster cottage. It's going to blend into the area, and that's the whole idea. It's not going to be very high. It's going to be maybe touch higher of what we have right now, because we need to run the services underneath this cottage. But the whole idea is then we're going to build a building that's going to blend into the area. And I also like to clarify one more thing is our garage is not finished. We don't rent the garage upstairs. My husband uses for storage, and I'll be more than happy somebody to come on a property and I show you what we have, how we keep this property. It's hard to tell in the winter, but the property is kept very, very well, and that's what we are intending to do.
Okay, thank you for that. Just to reiterate the comments from our Director of Planning. Another question, Member Schmidt?
Yeah, I just wanted to finish up on my thought. Because as I'm sitting here right now looking at the one photo where you can see from the lake the visual impact of the existing cottage plus the sleeping cabin to the right of it, I question if this remains a bungalow, how significantly different the visual impact will be with that them being one piece. Just wanted to clarify, and the sizing that we're looking at, I think, is about a 2,600 and change square foot bungalow. No, I don't see any walkout basement, keeping it low to the ground. So I just wanted to caution that although we always get into these situations with sort of the grandfathered position and the setback of where it is, the numbers seem large by percentage, but I don't know that it's that large when it's in practice. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Member Schmidt. Keep in mind that we don't have before us a set of plans showing the elevation, so it's difficult for us to concept. But if you look at what the application is calling for, it's going to be twice as large and twice as wide. So it's going to definitely have an impact on the view from the canoe. The other thing that you didn't mention in there is part of that view from the water includes a fairly large covered closed-in boathouse and a boat port that's attached to that. So that's part of the visual impact that needs to be dealt with. So if there are no further questions, I'd like to reiterate the comments that our Director of Planning made, that we are looking at two tests as we look at as we decide on the outcome of this application. One is the desirability of the appropriate development, and that sort of takes into account all of the comments that we've received so far from the neighbors, comments from the various people who have viewed the property, questions that have come up during the committee. So you need to be comfortable with, in order to approve, that this is a desirable use of that property. Keeping in mind, as the property sits right now, there are two sleeping cabins on it, that one of which, of course, is more than what the bylaw allows for. There's only one sleeping cabin allowed on a cottage with a frontage of this size. And obviously there are the concerns about that and how it got there, and the fact that it's not on the application, and nor is the boathouse and boat port on the application. So it raises questions. The other part of it is if there's any adverse impacts to the neighborhood. And the planner has mentioned that part of the conditions of approval of this would be to add some natural reforestation or natural vegetation to the property. And that would be in an area that is 15 meters from the shoreline. And if you look at the drawing that was provided, the cottage as it sits right now is 8.5 meters. So if you double that, you know, we're covering a good portion of the property within the same 15 meters that the coverage would be required. So before we take a vote on this, just so that we're clear and there's no confusion, you had a question, Member Predko? That could take a while. I have to start over now. The point that I want to get at is there seems to be a number of concerns expressed by not only the neighbors, but the people who have raised questions here on the committee. So when we take a vote, if there is an appetite for deferral of this to give the applicant time to work with planning to make some changes, this would be the time to indicate your preference to do that.
And thank you, Chair. That's why my hand is up. I think that there's enough unanswered questions in terms of the scale of items on the survey, the lack of boathouse and dockage, that I would feel more comfortable if we deferred this and had full information about the property and the proposal.
Okay, and member Jarvis?
I'm of the same mind, only because, well, for other reasons, but the one reason being that the photos we have are during winter, so we've got ice and snow, and it's not determined from the water what the actual cottage looks like when people are when it's in use.
Very well. Are there any comments from member Hazelton or member Schmidt in terms of what are your thoughts on deferral?
I like the idea.
Member
you.
Schmidt's got his hand up.
I would support the deferral to get a little bit more clarification, and I would like to see some elevations of what the proposed dwelling is going to be. I think that would really help the cause as well. So I would support a deferral.
Thank you. Member Hazelton.
I would support a deferral, and I would also just reflecting on people's comments in your summary, Chair, that we have what I would consider an incomplete application in that we don't know what's on the property. We don't have surveys showing us what's on the property. It's missing the sleeping cabin. It's missing a large dock.
It's not.
I personally believe that if we're going to consider something, we really need to have full information for us to make that decision. And right now we're guessing as to where these things are. And I think that it would be the responsibility of the applicant to, if they truly want us to decide in their favor, that they are fully transparent and disclose everything. Thank you.
Thank you. With that in mind, I will read the amended resolution, moved by member Rivet, seconded by member Jarvis. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment defers minor variance application A23-50 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 386 Corval Road to facilitate the demolition of the existing cottage and construction of a single detached dwelling in the approximate same footprint as the legal non-compliant dwelling. So I won't bother reading the conditions because deferral is deferral. So all those in favor of?
Mr. Chair, we need a little more explanation as to what you're looking for, why we're deferring this.
Very well. I will summarize that. The reasons for deferral, and feel free, members of the committee, to add to this, is one, is that we feel the information provided is incomplete. The drawings do not show all of the buildings that are on it. Number two, that the requirement for additional naturalization of the shoreline, first of all, doesn't seem to be suitable for what the existing setback is on the property. And the second part of that is that normally when we ask for rehabilitation of the shoreline, that plan needs to be developed by a landscape architect and not the owner, which is what is being expressed in this case. So that is part of it. The third one raised by one of our members is the fact, is relocation of the reconstruction been considered by the applicant, and is there some hardship or reason why that can't be relocated? Anything further that members would like to add to that list? Or is that sufficient?
Chair, if I could just add in, I think your idea of relocation is ideal. However, the applicant has suggested they have a mechanical room that, they would like to salvage, but given that they're planning to do a full demo of what's there, then they really have an opportunity to not simply slide back what they have, but rotate it and work it around the geography of the lot to come up with a new location that is truly back behind the setback requirements. And we've actually already heard from our planning department that if they chose to put in an application and it was fully back behind the setbacks, that they wouldn't even need to come for a variance.
Yeah, that point's well taken. Thank you, Member Hazelton. I'm not gonna write that out, but we get the message. Anything further that we'd like to add? All right. Is that sufficient for you, Ms. McKay, those?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's sufficient. I don't know if you want to put a time limit on it, when you want it to come back, or,
That'll be entirely between you and the applicant, as however long it takes.
okay, oh,
Yes, Mr. Whitlib.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the other committee members for enunciating, summarizing those items for the deferral. I would therefore perhaps request with the chairs and the movers and seconders indulgence that the motion itself, rather than cite all those items, which I know planning staff have noted down and the applicants heard today, that the motion itself perhaps speak to that the application be deferred so that the applicant can address the issues and concerns expressed during the hearing.
Instead of listing them all out.
Yeah, unless they're written into the motion, but I didn't get the sense that they were going to be
No.
written into the motion. So
Okay.
if at least that language is in the motion, in the decision itself, that assists both staff and the applicant in terms of understanding the reason for deferral and what it would take to bring it back.
And Madam Secretary, did you get those reasons or in your, okay, then we're good and you can amend, we're gonna take a vote, but you can write the resolution afterwards. All right. Very good. Thank you for that input, Mr. Whitlib. And with all of that said and done, and having read all but the last couple of words of the resolution, it appears that we're all in favor of deferral, and I would ask for a vote. For all those in favor of deferral of this application for the reasons mentioned, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The vote is unanimous and the application is deferred. Our next application is A24-05 for 8396 Go Home Lake Shore. To the planner, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the expansion of the existing legal non-complying detached dwelling. The subject property has an area of approximately 7,880 square meters and 74.6 meters of frontage onto Go Home Lake. The property is developed with a detached dwelling that was constructed in 1962 and renovated in 2012, 2 land-based accessory buildings, and a U-shaped dock. The front yard is characterized by large masses of granite rock with shallow pockets of low-lying vegetation and many mature pine trees. The front yard has a steep elevation, and the dwelling is located at the top where the grade levels off before sloping downward in the rear yard. The lands are designated waterfront and zoned shoreline residential island type 1. The existing dwelling is set back 16.7 meters from the high water mark, having a gross floor area of 69.13 square meters, comprised of 1 floor with a combined living and kitchen space, 2 bedrooms, although one is only 56 square feet, and 1 bathroom. Decks are located on the front and rear of the dwelling. The applicant is proposing an addition onto the right side with a floor area of 75.83 square meters, which will be the location for 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a laundry mudroom combination. A sunroom addition is proposed on the rear of the existing dwelling with an area of 18.14 square meters. The existing dwelling's floor area will be reconfigured so that it provides for an open concept living, dining room, and kitchen. The existing decks will be removed to accommodate a new L-shaped deck that wraps around the front and left side of the existing dwelling. A walkway is also being proposed to provide access to the sunroom and rear of the building from outside. To facilitate the development, the applicant is requesting an increased gross floor area of 94.08 square meters, whereas an increase of 48.39 square meters is permitted. An increased width of 10.16 meters, whereas an increase of 6.96 meters is permitted. A deck with a setback of 11.4 meters from the front lot line, whereas a minimum front yard of 20 meters is permitted. and a portion of the proposed expansion, being the deck, to encroach further into the existing front yard by 5.3 meters, whereas no portion of any expansion is permitted to encroach further into the existing front yard. As the proposed development is an expansion to an existing detached dwelling having a legal non-complying status due to the date it was constructed and location, and the proposed expansions do not exceed the regulations of the zone in which the building is located, the application is to be considered under 45(2) of the Planning Act. The tests for an application for permission to expand are based on desirability and whether the application will result in undue adverse impacts on the surrounding properties. When applying these tests, only the proposed expansion may be evaluated for undue adverse impacts. As supported by site photos, the existing dwelling is difficult to see from Go Home Lake due to the abundance of natural vegetation, its muted color scheme, and the significant grade change. The proposed additions onto the existing dwelling will be located beyond the existing front yard setback of 16.7 meters. Only a small portion of the addition proposed on the right side of the dwelling will be located within 20 meters of the regulated water's edge, which is the minimum setback for new development in the SR1 zone, and will be set back 19.4 meters. The proposed expansions will maintain the existing low building height of 4.2 meters. The deck is set back 11.4 meters from the regulated water edge. However, this setback does not take into account the extreme grade change between these two features. The zoning bylaw also recognizes that decks have a lesser visual impact on water bodies than detached dwellings by permitting decks to have a 16-meter setback to the regulated water's edge as opposed to 20 meters. The proposed development also exceeds minimum side yard requirements. The committee can approve the requested variances as recommended by planning staff, or they can defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. For the committee to deny the requested variances, the undue adverse impacts of the proposed expansion must be demonstrated by objective evidence and must be sufficient to override the property owner's right to reasonable flexibility, evolution, and expansion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Has there been any correspondence in this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Is the applicant present and do they wish to address the committee?
Good morning. For the record, my name is Victoria Hoffman here with Flow Drawings and Design, 3 Violet Drive, Port Severn. Shania did a great job walking you through this application. Just to kind of quickly summarize, this existing property is kind of unique. If you were to take a tape measure at the water, and if you were to take a 100-foot tape measure at the water, I'm not even sure you'd get to the top of the rock and over to towards the building. However, the way that the setback is measured, it's a horizontal dimension, which brings us into the non-compliance. The existing cottage is a well-maintained, I think it's 744 square feet cottage. So when we look at our GFA allowed increases, the space that we were allowed just wasn't giving the property owners what they were looking for. The width variance that we're seeking, again, the nature of this property, so the width is taken from the sideline to sidelines lot line, but they actually have like 250 meters of frontage. And just the orientation of the cottage kind of projects over their peninsula. So that has kind of caught them on their width. And then the deck, it's essentially just trying to make a safe space for the grandparent or aging family members and the grandkids, and to be able to use those sliding glass doors that have existed out that front door where there's some kind of uneven rock, stuff like that. I know Shania included some photos, but if you guys have any questions, I think that view from the canoe, this is one of the highest properties, I would say, like cottages in that bay for sure. So from the canoe, you're not going to see the deck. You might see the roof lines, but there's so much vegetation on the property. I don't think that comes into play. So with the site photos, we originally met, I think, fall of 2022. So I did take quite a few. They were in her report, which is great. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to kind of walk through those as well as the site plan. The property owners are also online. I don't think they have anything to add, but they can let us know if they do. But yeah, here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Huffman. Is there any member of the public present that wish to address this application? Okay, seeing none, I will. No. I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And those online, please raise your hand. And Member Jarvis.
I'm going to ask the indulgence of our planner and possibly Victoria, since I was unable to get out to the site. I apologize for not doing that. In the photos, only this is just for some clarification on my part. If we look at the photos, you had one from the water looking at the dock. I don't even see a cottage in that picture, which is good, but I would like to know where in that picture the cottage is.
Can you pull them up and I can kind of give a little walk around?
Through the chair, I'm going to share my screen and put the
That'd be
photos
great.
back
Yeah,
up.
that would be helpful.
Do you have the report?
I do.
So in that picture, the picture on the right, my right-hand side there, where's the cottage in relation to that?
So the cottage, see kind of in right square in the middle of that picture above the kayaks, there's that white,
Okay,
that's the
got it.
siding.
Okay,
And that's from the, and now there is like a little bit, I don't know if you can pull up the other ones, it might be worth sharing with you guys, like in the report, sorry.
even in that picture, actually, the bigger one there.
So again, there's a few more, because essentially what we had done is we had taken them, like we just cruised around the peninsula and we had taken them kind of consecutively, but this picture was to show you on the right side or left side of that image, there's the neighbor's boathouse, and see right where she's circling, that's the blue chair on the deck, so you can kind of compare that to the or sorry, I think that's just even on the rock, and then you kind of come around and then see on this side, you're on the left side of that peninsula.
If we could just stay on that page, Victoria, the photo top right on that shows a deck that looks like it's fairly high off the ground. I think the new deck would be going around on that side. Is that correct?
No, so that is where the stairs are, is actually where the sunroom is going to be. So this is the back elevation.
That's the back
This
elevation.
is to show you how, so on the right gable end of that cottage there, that's where the new deck's going to be.
That's the new, sorry, the new what?
The deck's going to be on the right side of
Okay.
that, and then around to the front. And this is also to show you how the property slopes towards the rear, towards the cottage is built on the high spot too.
Yeah, it is. So where's the addition going on in relation to this photo then? That same that. Oh dear, can we go back? It's easier for me to. The previous photo.
Yep. So. Sorry.
There you are.
So the addition, see the top of the stairs there's a man door. If you're looking at that image, you following me?
So the addition, yeah, I
So
see.
that's
I
the
see
small
yeah.
addition. That's going to be the sunroom off there. And then if you go to the other side of the dwelling, if you stay on the top image, you go around to the left. Yeah, that's where the large part of the addition, which is to the rear.
Is that going to be elevated significantly at the back of the cottage then?
It is going to be stepped, yeah, but it's not going to be like finished.
Well,
it'll be
again,
the same
that's
floor
the back. I presume at the front, it's not going to have the same appearance.
No. So if you go to, if you go back to that front image, that there is the front, like the sliding glass doors, and where that existing deck is, that is what the front is. Again, because of the
orientation.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, but I would honestly, even the way that we had termed our elevation, we had said it was that deck side, but I would consider that gable in the front, like that is kind of
Thank you.
the more.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Member Predko.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I was, you wouldn't have been able to, Member Jarvis wouldn't have been able to get there last week, given the conditions of ice and snow across the lake. So don't beat yourself up on that one. But I just did also want to, I think Victoria did an excellent job of describing how difficult this ridge is and the properties in this area, which also basically includes mine. It is a hike up the hill and it's very close to the water and it's not level even at the top. So I think they're doing as well as they can do to increase a small property to make it a little bit larger.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments by the committee members? I don't see any hands up online. Okay. With that in mind, I will read the resolution. Moved by member Matthews, seconded by member Hazelton. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the following variances requested under minor variance application A 24-05. Number one, an increased gross floor area of 94.08 square meters, whereas section 411E31 permits an increase of 48.39 square meters. Number two, an increased width of 10.16 meters, whereas section 411E32 permits an increase of 6.96 meters. Three, a deck with setback of 11.4 meters from the front lot line, whereas column 2 and table 6.2 permits a minimum front yard of 20 meters. And four, a portion of the proposed expansion being the deck to encroach further into the existing front yard by 5.3 meters, whereas section 411E34 does not permit any portion of any expansion to encroach further in the existing front yard. And these are subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from the Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And two, that this decision applies only to the detached dwelling and deck as indicated on Schedule A attached to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear on the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized. And three, that this decision expires 3 years from the date of chief planner accepting the studies if building permits have not been issued for the development. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next application is A24-06 for 849 Harrison Trail. To the planner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me get my bearings here. There we go. The next application is A24-06. The address is 849 Harrison Trail, and the applicants are Jeff Edelson and Brenda Watson. As you can see on the location map up on your screen, the property itself is on the north side of 12 Mile Bay and totally surrounded by Crown land up in this area. So a minor variance was received by the township on January 9th as a result of a pre-application consultation which took place in September. The owners would like to demolish the existing legal non-complying dwelling and construct a new dwelling partially in the same footprint as the existing dwelling. And the new dwelling is to be located 10 meters from the high water mark with the deck proposed at 8.8 meters to the high water mark, which is significantly bettering the current situation. As you can see in the pictures on the screen, this is quite a steep property. Where the actual existing cottage is located in this area, as you can see, basically there's a long set of stairs that provides access to the upper part of the property. And it was kind of tricky getting around in the snow, I'm going to be honest with you, with this property, as I'm sure you felt as well. So the proposed development is asking for an increase in the existing gross floor area. So the bylaw requires 25% maximum for the increase in gross floor area, whereas the applicants are requesting that it be increased by 62%. So the existing gross floor area is 158 square meters, and they're proposing a gross floor area of 254.5 square meters. Section 411E as well also permits a increase in width of a maximum of 20%, whereas the owners are requesting a 45% increase. And as you can see, really, it's only a difference of approximately 5 meters because the existing width is 10.55 meters and the proposed width is to be 15.24 meters. There is some drawings up on the screen of what the proposed structure is going to look like. And in this bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you can see still they are building it into the side of the hill as the existing. So this reconstruction and expansion, of course, is being done under 45.2 of the Planning Act, and the tests that you must make your decision on are under 45.2. So as stated previously, the required maximum increase in GFA is 25%, and the owners are requesting an increase to 62%. And the maximum permitted width is 20%, and the owners are proposing for 45%. So as the subject property is within 20 meters of the high water mark, an erosion and sediment control plan is being recorded as a condition of approval. As you'll note on the previous photos, there is significant natural vegetation on the westerly side of the property. Therefore, staff are not recommending any sort of rehabilitation of plantings. And based on the approval of the application and the review of the relevant policies, the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement, and it does meet section 45(2) of the Planning Act in staff's opinion and represents good planning.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McCabe. Has there been any correspondence in this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Okay, is the applicant present, and do they wish to add anything to what the planners had to offer?
Morning, Chair and Council. My name is Jennifer Robinson from Timber Block, the authorized agent. I just want to make one clarification with regards to the interior setbacks. As noted in the staff report, we are reducing the west side setback. However, it will still exceed 20 meters where the bylaw is 5. And then the current east side, the existing setback is less than 1 meter, and we are proposing to meet the bylaw, which is 5 meters.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public present that wish to comment on this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And we'll begin with Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's hard to beat Mr. Jarvis to the draw. So, Deb, just a point of clarity. I know it's not really part of the terms, but the setback you said is a net gain. I couldn't really see anything on the drawing. You said it was from 0.9 to something better than that.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Basically, the existing structure is much closer to the high water mark, as you can see. Oh, I might have to share my screen rather than just point at it. Just bear with me here.
Just the drawing was so dark, it's hard to tell what was new.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. I get that. So you can see on here, so the existing, this is the proposed. Can you see my cursor on there?
Yes.
That's the proposed, and as you can see, it's a much greater distance than the existing.
That helps a lot. Thank you.
So Ms. McCabe, if it's going back, is it going up?
I'll let Jennifer answer that one.
Due to the steep terrain of the lot, it is going to slightly be higher from the high water mark. However, it is still less than what the neighboring lots are.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Member Jarvis.
I had to get somewhere in. No, further to Member Matthews' comments. Deb, would you mind showing the picture from the water? And I have a question with regards to that, just for reference. If we were to take the picture, then that's fine, either one in the lower or the one on the left, which shows it from the water. If we're thinking of the new build, it would be basically above where that upper level is. Is that correct? Up the hill. And further back, setback, or even from that.
Yes, basically what
Yeah.
you're saying is true, because the thing is, I mean, they are going from like a 0.9 setback to like 8 meters at the closest point, so.
No, I appreciate that I always appreciate when, I think we all do, when somebody can, when they change and put a new build in, they move back, as already been discussed in the previous application. Thank you.
And Jennifer, if I might ask, is the color of the new cottage going to be the one that is indicated in here, which is basically either black or dark?
The exterior finish color has yet to be selected. However, it is a timber block build, which is fully constructed of pine. and typically clients, just stain it. So it would, blend into the terrain.
So that is not necessarily the final color that's shown in the picture that you have up on the screen.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from committee members? Member Rivet?
Pardon me, yes, to you, Mr. Chair, no questions, but, the location of the cottage, especially on that north shore, even when it's moved back, it will still be very much in keeping with the characteristics of other ones, especially on that north shore. So I think it's going to be an incredible net gain, and I'm sure it will be an overall fantastic improvement. It looks fantastic. I have no problem with the application.
Thank you. Any of our online members have their hands up? Okay. Then I'll read the resolution. Moved by Member Rivet, seconded by Member Jarvis. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay. I don't know who wrote this. It must be the night shift. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay hereby approves application A24-06 to zoning bylaw 2014 as amended for 849 Harrison Trail to facilitate the demolition of the existing cottage and the construction of a single detached dwelling to be located 10 meters from the high water mark and the attached deck to be 8.8 meters from the high water mark in the approximate same footprint as the legal non-compliant dwelling as follows. And as you saw in the chart, the maximum increase in GFA at 62% and a maximum increase in width at 45%. And the above approval is subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And two, that this decision applies only to the proposed new single detached dwelling as indicated in Schedule A, attached to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear on the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized. And three, that the owner prepare and submit prior to issuance of a building permit an erosion and sediment control plan to the sole satisfaction and approval of the township, and said approved ESC plan be installed and maintained throughout the duration of the construction of the property. And four, that this decision expires 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for this development. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. And the two online. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next application is A24-10 for 727 North Shore Road. To the planner, please.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. As you stated, the address is 727 North Shore Road, and the applicant name is Terry McQuay. So it should be noted that the notice distributed only listed variances numbers 1 and 2 as displayed on the screen. It was found by planning staff that the applicant was required to further vary section 4.1.12.4 of the bylaw to recognize the number of dryland boathouses, in-water boathouses, and boat ports. As such, the following variances are requested. The purpose and effect of the application is to facilitate the extension of a dock and the construction of a new boat port as described below. An increase in the maximum projection of a dock of 35.05 meters, whereas section 4.1.13.2 F allows for a maximum projection of 26 meters, an increase in the maximum boat port width of 13.11 meters, whereas section 4.1.13.1 allows for a maximum width of 9.21 meters, and an increase in maximum number of dryland boathouses, in-water boathouses, and boat ports to 3, whereas section 4.1.12.4B allows for 1. Here's a location map of the subject lands. The lot size is 10,319.48 square meters, and the lot frontage is 61.4 meters. Here's the site plan that was distributed with the notice. It should be noted that staff opined that the recirculation of the notice is not required as the proposal and site plan attached to the original notice have not changed. This was the site plan that was distributed with the notice, and it displays both existing dryland boathouses and the proposed boat port. As you can see, highlighted in the pink color is the existing dock and the 2 accessory structures spoken of. And outlined in black is a proposed dock, boat port, and blue is the water's edge. Here you can see the renderings and overhead of the proposed boat port. Here is a proposed boat traffic and access study provided by the applicant. As you can see, the location of the proposed boat port and the extension of the dock will not interfere with any of the current commonly traveled boat traffic lanes. Here's site photos. Here's a view of the existing dock. As I've mentioned, the proposed projection is already existing. And here is a view of the accessory structures and the existing dwelling on the subject lands. Conclusion. Based on the information submitted and a review of the provincial policy statement, the District of Muskoka official plan, the Township of Georgian Bay official plan, and the Township of Georgian Bay zoning bylaw, it is staff's opinion that the proposed minor variance application is consistent and in conformity with relevant policies and provisions and represents good planning. Therefore, staff are recommending approval of the application as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Has there been any correspondence in this application?
4 letters of support were received from neighboring property owners.
Thank you. Is the applicant or their agent present, and do they wish to add anything to the comments of the planning department?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is Cartier.
Armin, can you come stand Mike?
And we'll need your name and address for the record. Yeah.
Thank you very much for hearing us today. I just wanted to add a little bit of color. I think our planner did an excellent job on the presentation and so forth. The subject property is in a neighborhood where it's very close to Quarry Island and Present Island, which have special provisions in the zoning bylaw for longer docks because of the shallow sloping nature of the shoreline. And so that's certainly the case here. And that's the reason why the existing dock is where it is and why we're proposing that the boat port be put in the same location. And it's strictly, we're governed by poor water depth. And on the plan, do we have, Andrew, do we have the plan that shows the water depth at the corner of the dock? The shore side and the outside?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll pull that plan up.
Anyway, I can fill in the blanks, but there's basically, at the time that we measured, Nick was there and measured everything when he drew the plan, and there was 2.5 feet of water at the shore side of the dock last fall. Today, we have about 10 inches less than that. We measured it just before coming to the meeting today. And on the outside, there's about 5 feet of water. I think at the time it was about 6 feet last fall. But we're really governed by the depth of water at the shore end of the dock. And it should be noted that the part that's close to shore is a fixed dock, and then there's a ramp going to the floating dock. So the existing L-shaped section is all floater. Due to the exposure, the reason for the application is really because due to the exposure to extreme weather there, we're vulnerable to the west winds, and there's a big fetch right across almost to Tang shoreline. So there's a lot of wave action that can come in there. And also to shield the applicants' boats from the sun. And yeah, I think I've covered that. And we already know this, but Mr. McQuay has consulted with his neighbors, and I believe he had 4 letters of support. And we're happy to answer any questions that the committee or the public has.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any member of the public present that wish to comment on this application? No one online. Okay, seeing that, I will bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And we'll begin with member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had the privilege of getting there this morning and having a quick look around at Mr. McRae. Just for confirmation, Mr. Gates, the L-shaped dock is being removed and the new boat port is going roughly in the same position. Right?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that is correct.
And as a matter of curiosity, the massive structure that you put onto the existing one, will that come off or are you going to leave that in place? The new decking that was on the existing deck that you raised up with the steel beams and the new deck, or maybe you didn't do it.
That still has to stay in order to provide access to the structure as per the application. So I'm not sure. There's not.
There was an existing dock there, and then it was raised with steel beams and a whole new decking,
yes,
and chained down and.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that was during high water.
Yeah.
A few years ago, as we all remember, that the only way we could support the previous owner, Mr. McQuay, as a new owner of the property, but the original owner of the property asked us to do something, and of course everything was awash, and with the exposure to wind that I mentioned earlier, the only remedy was to build something heavy enough that we could lay it on top of the dock. So now that the water has receded, I believe it's Mr. McQuay's and our intention to either remove that or remove the old decking under it and then lower it down. So there'll be no difference in footprint whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good
Thank
question.
you. Member Jarvis.
Thank you, Chairman, for the clarifications. I'm just curious to know, this is a granite shoreline, correct? Or is this shoreline similar to Quarry Island?
No, quarry is kind of unique. It's almost like a rock rubble limestone, believe it or not. It's quite unique compared to where we are here. There's granite, but quite a bit of the shoreline there is also kind of a beachy glacial till, if you will. And but there is rock. The approach to the dock has bedrock now. That's correct.
Sounds like an interesting challenge.
I'm sorry?
It sounds like an interesting challenge.
Yeah, well, you can only go out to get the depth of water, as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately.
Well, and that's the other issue now. We all know, all those of us living in coastal Georgian Bay, and you have been there, water levels fluctuate significantly, close to 2 meters in my memory. That's a significant amount of up and down. I see the current dock shore structure is affixed below the high water mark. So it must have been compromised during that period in 2020 when we had water above the high water mark at times. Is that correct?
Are you referring to the part that's under the new panels that we've put on?
I'm looking strictly at what's showing in the drawings. That would be in the red. So it looks like it looks like the old or the current dock as it stands.
Yes.
Looks to me like it's affixed somewhere between the water's edge and the high water mark.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, what was the question again?
So it would have been compromised, I presume, or underwater during those periods of 2020.
Yes, that's correct. That's why we put the heavy panels with the steel frame under them, so it wouldn't float away, but it gave safe access to the floating dock at the time.
And as I'm sure you're aware, there are forecasts that the water levels may drop to as much as a meter below the most recent low water mark, which is 2012, I believe.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we may be back here again if that happens. Yeah. I suspect I'll be joined by a lot of others.
But then you'll have more property anyway.
Correct.
I have real concerns over these things. It's because it's on the Georgian Bay shoreline, and we got to make sure that somehow there's some sort of built-in way of preventing these things from having to be rebuilt every time the water level changes. Not that I'm saying there is one, but it'd be nice if we could figure that out. Anyway, thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or comments from the committee? Anyone online? Okay. Having no more questions, I will read the resolution. Moved by member Predko, seconded by member Schmidt, Be it resolved that Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A 24-10 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 727 North Shore Road to facilitate the maximum projection of a dock to 35.05 meters, an increase in maximum boat port width of 13.11 meters, and to the addition of a boat port, whereas section 4.1.12-4B permits only one dryland boathouse, an in-water boathouse or boat port, and whereas two dryland boathouse already exist. Do they? Okay.
Chair Hill, may I
Oh,
add
yeah.
some color to that? I think, I'm not sure if Andrew, we haven't had a personal discussion about this, but I missed that when I reviewed what was coming through, but there's really only one dryland boathouse. The other one is a gazebo, which is a permitted structure, and it's the right distance back, or more than the right distance back from the water. So there's really one dryland boathouse, which is quite tiny, single-story building, and it has the garage door on the water side. And the other one is a gazebo with a stone patio. And then so that's really not counted, I don't think, as a dry boathouse, but just for clarity for the committee.
Yeah.
So there's really.
I don't think it's gonna have an effect, and as a matter of fact,
No.
it won't have an effect on the application, but I was a little surprised to read that, but anyway, the second condition is that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And third, that this decision applies only to the proposed dock and proposed boat port as indicated on Schedule A attached here to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear on the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized, and that this decision expires 3 years from the date of decision and building permits have not been issued for this development. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. And 2 online. Thank you very much. The motion is carried and the application is approved.
Thank you all for your support.
Thank you. Our next application, unless I noticed you're looking at it for a bio break.
Sure. I'll take the hit this time.
Yeah, yeah. So we will have
I only need a minute and a half.
okay. In respect to Member Matthews, we will reconvene at 11:45.
11:45.
11:50, Chair, 11:50.
I gotta run.
Oh, no, that's 11:40. Let's make it 11:51.
that the notice distributed only listed variance number 1 as displayed on screen. It was found by planning staff that the applicant was required to further vary the same section of the zoning bylaw to recognize an increase in width of a legal non-complying dwelling. Planning staff opined that the recirculation of notice is not required as the proposal and site plan attached to the original notice have not changed. The proposed structure remains the same as initially identified. As such, the following variances are requested. An increase in gross floor area of 110%, whereas section 4.11E2 allows for a maximum increase in gross floor area of 40%, an increase in width of 85.2%, whereas section 4.11E2 allows for a maximum increase in width of 30%. Here's the location map. As you can see, the lot size is 1 acre and the lot frontage is 237.74 meters. The site plan, as you can see, the existing dwelling and accessory structures where my cursor is now is outlined in black, while the proposed addition is this hatched area, and the identified setbacks throughout the lot are identified in red. The proposed addition elevations, as you can see, the addition is this detailed area here, elevated by concrete pillars, while the existing structure is this lightly outlined area here. Here's the proposed addition floor plan. Once again, this is the existing side of the dwelling and the existing screen porch, while the addition is this section on the right side. The site photos. The photo on the left is that screen porch that was spoken about in the last slide, and the photo on the right is the rear of the cottage where the proposed addition will be added. As you can see, there's 3 trees there. The applicant has identified to planning staff that these 3 mature trees will need to be removed to support the addition. This is the only vegetation or mature trees that will be removed. Here's a view of the existing dwelling and property from the water. And on the right is just giving you an idea of the elevation from the cottage to the waterfront. The conclusion. Based on the information submitted and a review of the provincial policy statement, a review of the application, if the application is desirable and appropriate for the development of the subject property and whether the application will result in undue adverse impacts on the surrounding properties and neighborhood, it is staff's opinion that the proposed minor variance application is consistent and in conformity with the relevant policies and provisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Has there been any correspondence in this application?
1 letter of support was received from a neighboring property owner.
Thank you. Is the applicant present and do they wish to add anything? Please come forward, turn on the microphone and give us your name and address, please.
Good morning, my name is Ian Hall.
Is it on? I don't think so.
Oh, sorry. Ian Halford, along with my wife Irene, the owners of the cottage. Nothing really further to add. I think the presentation is great, but I'm here if you have any questions.
Okay,
So,
thank you very much. Is there any member of the public present and do they have any comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And Member Jarvis.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just go to the planner and ask for indulgence? The photo you showed of the cottage from the water, where would the addition be in relation to that photo?
Through the chair, I'll just share my screen again.
Thank you.
With confirmation from you, I believe it's this area here where my cursor is surrounding.
It's really hard to say. The cottage is set back so far, you almost can't see it from the lake. I think that that's actually, I'm trying to tell what that picture is. If that's the front of the island, that might be the sleeping cabin rather than the cottage itself. The cottage is set further back.
Is it this area here that
it's well behind that? The challenge is we can't get pictures of the cottage from the lake because you don't even see it. It disappears with all the trees around it.
And that's
So-
a good thing.
It is a good thing.
And that probably answers my question too.
Yeah.
One other just helpful piece of information for me, Andrew, would have been what the current GFA is and what the net new GFA will be.
Through the
I don't
chair.
think it matters much. I'm just curious to know.
Right. Through the chair, the existing dwelling area is 81.31 square meters, and the proposed will be 141.61 square meters.
So a mansion then. Thank you.
Do you have your hand up, Member Pritko? Or
So one additional question. I apologize. May I just interject?
you'll have to wait till the very end? Unless you want to give it to us now.
Like really quickly, does the GFA include the screen and porch, the current?
It does.
Okay, thank you.
I see that we have a participant online that may have a question or comment. If so, please go ahead. Okay, and Dave, would you please identify yourself with name and address, and we're more than willing to take any questions or comments you may have. I notice that you are muted at the moment. Okay.
Okay, I think you can hear me now.
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Okay, my camera is on. Oh, sorry, let's start that too. There we are. Actually, it's Dave Thorpe, 361 Maplehurst Avenue in Oakville. I'm actually the applicant for A2414. And I just, with all due respect, sorry, Andrew, I want to point out that that picture of the cottage is our cottage.
No wonder I was so confused. I thought, where did that come from?
Sorry, it's the cottage you'll see for A2414. So
are you related?
No, but you know what? Funny enough, they live down the street from us. So yeah, that's the strangest thing.
This is very suspicious.
Totally random, I'm afraid.
Okay, Andrew, do you have a different presentation you'd like to make? Or?
All the other pictures, as far as I'm aware, are of the subject property in question. We do receive a lot of emails from different applicants. It must have got mixed up in the process, and I included it in this presentation. My apologies.
We blame this on Deb McCabe.
Through the chair, yes.
Yeah. Very good. Well, that is exciting. I understand that the content of the application is the same, although apologize for not having the right pictures. But in this case, the Andrew, the setbacks and the dimensions that are showing in that drawing are in fact correct.
Yes, that's correct. It's just that picture that's a mistake.
Yeah. Okay, then that's great, and thank you, Mr. Thorpe, for pointing that out. We're already well prepared to look at your presentation.
Okay, thank you. I just thought I should mention.
Is there any member of the public that wishes to add comment to this application? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public session and bring the application before the committee for any further questions or comments. And any online? All right. Seeing none, I will read the application. It is moved by Member Hazelton, seconded by Member Jarvis. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A2411 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 10 Island 40 Go Home Lake to facilitate an addition to a legal non-complying dwelling with an increase in gross floor area of 110% and an increase in width of 85.2%. The above noted approvals are subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And that this decision applies only to the proposed building as indicated on Schedule A, attached to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may apply to the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized. And that this decision expires 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for this development. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next application is A24-12 for 32 Island 810. To the planner, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of a detached dwelling with a combination of porch and deck structures in the front yard. The property owner has obtained building permits to allow for the construction of a detached dwelling, sleeping cabin, and the installation of a septic system. However, they are proposing a new design for the detached dwelling and now require relief from the zoning bylaw prior to obtaining a new building permit. The subject lands form part of Royal Island with an area of approximately 8,630 square meters and a frontage of 100 meters on Georgian Bay. The lands are characterized by granite rock with the rear being forested. Mature trees are also scattered around the shoreline. The lands are designated waterfront and are located within the Honey Harbor Coastal Waterfront Community. The lands are zoned shoreline residential island type 1. As explained in the staff report, the variances identified on the notice vary from those presented today and listed in the report. The applicant has revised the proposal so that the entirety of the dock complies with the zoning bylaw, so this variance has been removed. Further investigation into the development proposal found that the L-shaped deck located in front of the proposed covered deck is not attached to the dwelling and below 1.2 meters in height. Therefore, this deck is freestanding and is permitted within 20 meters of the high water mark. Due to its size, the freestanding deck requires variance number 5. As this deck is permitted in the front yard, variance number 1 has been revised to reflect the setback between the nearest point of the other deck on the front of the dwelling and the high water mark, being 12.14 meters, whereas 11 meters was identified on the notice. As a result of these findings, variance number 4 was also revised to reflect the projection of this deck into the required yard as opposed to the freestanding deck. The projection of this deck is 7.86 meters into the required yard, whereas a projection of 9 meters was included on the notice. Staff also found that the deck on the left side of the dwelling was not specifically mentioned in the notice, so variances 1 and 4 have been revised to capture this deck as well. As the development proposal remains same as that illustrated on the notice, with the exception of the dock, which was reduced in size, a recirculation of the application was not deemed necessary by staff. The official plan allows for the consideration of a lesser setback from the high water mark through a variance to the zoning bylaw, where terrain or soil conditions require specific locations for the building and/or septic system. The applicant has informed staff that complying with the 20-meter setback would result in the need for earth removal or blasting and the removal of existing mature trees. According to the agent, the applicant and designer have determined that the proposed location at the top of the rock plateau would be most suitable to incorporate the existing topography. The Honey Harbor Coastal Waterfront Community encourages building design which lessens the impact on the surrounding landscape and states that new residential development shall be limited in size in the township zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw limits the size of development in this zone mainly through maximum lot coverage and does not regulate building width or gross floor area. The proposed development will result in a lot coverage of 6%, which is under the maximum permitted. The minimum permitted, sorry, my apologies, ahead of myself here. The intent of having a minimum front yard setback for properties on Georgian Bay is to assist with preserving the appearance of an undeveloped shoreline by limiting development to outside of the shoreline buffer and to avoid flood hazards. The minimum permitted front yard setback is 20 meters, whereas 16 meters being proposed to the nearest point of the building wall, 14.5 meters is proposed to the porch, and 12.14 meters for the deck. The majority of the dwelling is located beyond 20 meters of the high water mark. As identified by the applicant's agent, the dwelling is primarily located 20 meters from the water's edge on the southern shoreline and approximately 30 meters from the western shoreline. To clarify, the water's edge varies from that of the high water mark, and therefore the dwelling will appear to lake users to comply with the 20-meter setback. The zoning bylaw also requires the property owner to preserve existing native vegetation within 15 meters of the high water mark, with the exception of the shoreline activity area, which shall be a maximum of 25% of the natural state shoreline area. The existing vegetation will screen the development from Georgian Bay. The intent of the permitted yard encroachment section of the zoning bylaw is to allow for accessory structures such as decks and porches to project into a required yard. This section applies to development constructed in compliance with the minimum front yard setback requirement. As the applicant is requesting specific front yard setbacks for all components of the development, variances 3 and 4 are technical in nature and have the same effect as variance number 1. The applicant is proposing a detached dwelling with a maximum building height of 37 meters, whereas 8 meters is permitted. The height of the building on the right side measures 7.99 meters, whereas the height on the left side measures 8.37 meters. The intent of the maximum building height is to limit buildings to 2 stories or less and limit the visual impact of development on Georgian Bay. The proposed dwelling does not exceed 2 stories, and only a portion of the dwelling exceeds a height of 8 meters. Visually, a dwelling with a height of 8 meters versus 8.37 meters will appear the same. The committee can either approve or deny any one of the requested variances. The committee can defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision, and planning staff have completed a detailed analysis and are recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Has there been any correspondence in this application?
One letter of objection was received from Jeff Windo, and one letter of no concerns was received from the Severn Sound Environmental Association.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present and do they wish to address the committee on this application? Okay, is the applicant online?
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Savas Veratis. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. My name is Savas Veratis. I'm from Plan Muskoka, PO Box 5384, Huntsville, Ontario, P1H 2K7. I'm here this morning representing the applicants as their agent, and I'm a registered professional planner. First, I just want to thank staff for all their hard work on this one. And I agree with their recommendations that outlined in their detailed report. They did an excellent job describing the proposal. I agree that with the recommendation that it meets the 4 tests of a minor variance and that it should be approved here this morning. I had a lot of different things to say here, but to be honest with you, the staff, your staff member definitely covered off everything. I think I was going to say, sort of stole my thunder here a little bit. They did an excellent job doing that. So I'll just reiterate a couple points and I'll get over to questions. As you heard, this is for the construction of a new detached dwelling on the subject property. And the variances primarily for the shoreline setback deal with particularly with the location chosen for the new dwelling. Terrain constraints result in the building being most appropriately located at the top of a rock plateau that's found on the property. The slopes that has slopes on either side, the front and the back of that chosen location. This results in a minor encroachment into the required shoreline setback of the proposed dwelling. You heard that there's a small height encroachment as well, and I was going to explain why that is, but I think staff has explained that pretty clearly. Definitely the appearance of the building still appears to be like a 1.5 or a 2-story structure. It by no means results in this height variance. By no means results in the building appearing to be over a 2-story structure. So it still maintains the general intent and purpose of both the official plan and the zoning bylaw. The freestanding deck matter is somewhat of a technicality as well. The deck that is being labeled a freestanding deck appears to be an attached deck. If it was an attached deck, it would change the variance a little bit in terms of setbacks from the shoreline, but there is no no maximum size provision in the zoning bylaw for attached decks, only for freestanding decks. But because the building department doesn't deem it to be attached to the building because it's only attached by stairs, it results in it being a freestanding deck. And if it's a freestanding deck, there is a size permission maximum, and then this building, this deck exceeded it. I do agree with staff that this is somewhat of a technicality and does not result in a situation that's out of character for the shoreline area. So in terms of the shoreline setback, you've heard from staff that the official plan does permit reductions in shoreline setbacks where terrain constraints exist on the property. The property is very well vegetated, particularly in the shoreline and the area behind the building. And as I noted earlier, the building is set to sort of utilize this area that's devoid of trees on the top of a rock plateau to be constructed. If it helps a little bit, I can share my screen and show you exactly what I'm talking about. Just bear with me here for a second.
I think we're okay. Oh.
You're okay? Okay. I'll just stop that then. The encroachments located into the required yard are fairly minor in my opinion. Staff had mentioned that when you actually take a 20-meter setback from the actual water's edge, that's instead of the contour line that's used to delineate the shoreline, the present shoreline in the zoning bylaw, the building appears to be almost entirely behind that 20-meter setback. So for boaters passing by on the property, for all intents and purposes, the building will appear to be 20 meters from the water, even though the zoning bylaw measures that differently because of the way that it measures the shorelines or the present water's edge on the subject property. The existing trees located in front and behind the building will assist to mitigate any visual impacts of the proposal from the shoreline. And there also appears to be other instances of shoreline setbacks of less than 20 meters in the general area. So this ensures the proposal will not appear out of character with the surroundings. So just to conclude, I agree with staff's recommendation for the proposal meeting the 4 tests of a minor variance and representing good planning. I agree with the recommendation to approve the application here this morning, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Veradas. Is there any member of the public present that wish to address this application? Anyone online? Okay, seeing that, I'll bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And I'm sorry, someone just raised their hand online, and you're bringing them over, okay? Okay, we have Matt Reed joining us, and Matt, please identify yourself and your address, please.
Sure, yeah. I'm Matt Reed, and I'm actually the neighboring cottage to the subject property here. So I just wanted to pop on quick today just to say the proposal looks great to me, and I have no objections to it, so I'm in support. So.
Okay, thank you. What number are you then on Island 810?
40 Island 810.
40. Okay, excellent. Thank you for giving us your support.
Okay, thank you.
I see there's someone else online that wishes to add comment. Please go ahead. Is that Jeff Window? We see your name, but you're muted. And if you can unmute and identify yourself, appreciate it. See you now.
Okay, I'm Jeff Window. I have a cottage right across the bay, Island number 770. I have known this property because I'm just across the bay for 50 years and longer, 70, but I'm 79 now. I've been up there all my life. Anyway, I don't understand why that can't just be moved back about 20 feet to the northeast and be entirely within the envelope of the setback. They say blasting. To me, it does not make sense. When you look at the contour lines, the cottage already occupies on the northeast corner the maximum of the contour lines. So it's certainly, I don't see how you'd have to blast anything. It seems to me that this application is like an open season on setbacks, everything. They're looking to push the envelope of everything. So yeah, I object to it. I think that, don't we have a reason for these setbacks? I mean, this looks like, as I say, a desire to basically encroach on all the setbacks, probably for aesthetic purposes of the owners. But I just don't understand why it can't be entirely moved back into the normal setback range.
Okay, thank you for that input. Just back to the planner, do you have any comment regarding the, is there some hardship that the applicant has expressed here that would prevent them from staying within the guidelines?
Through the chair, I think the agent on the file is best suited to address those comments.
Okay, Mr. Varadas, do you have any comment regarding the need for the reduced setbacks?
Sure. From what I understand, from the talking to the designers and the landowners, you can see from the contour mapping that if you were to proceed to push the building back just straight to the north, that the contours of the sort of midsection of the property that are steep behind it start to encroach into the northwest corner of the proposed building. And it also starts to encroach into some mature vegetation that's located behind the building as well. I think the notion of there would be maybe blasting required would be if you were to skip that area altogether and position it as far back in the property in the next sort of location outside of that sort of bowl-shaped sort of center of the property. If you're located back there, you get into some steeper slopes that would require blasting as well. So I think that was the notion of why it was shown by the designers to be most appropriately located in that area devoid of vegetation right on top of the plateau.
Have you personally been on site to have a look at that, Mr. Varadas?
I unfortunately got involved in this after it was unsafe to travel to the property, so I haven't physically been on photographs of the property.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Is there any other member of the public that wishes to add comment? Okay, well, I would just ask you gentlemen to remain online in case we have any questions from I'm sorry, there is another person? Okay, if that person would please identify themselves with their name and address, we would welcome any questions or comments you may have. Then we can't hear you.
Yes, sorry about that. Hi there, my name is Chris McDonald. I am the cottage owner. And I just want to say that Savis is correct in the way that he just has described the top of that topography on the site there.
And just to expand on that, the comments that have been received indicate that area is open and there is a possibility to move the cottage back so that the amount of variance that you need for the setbacks is maybe either reduced or not required at all. Is that not correct?
I believe it's the way that the topography goes at the top of the hill where we have it set. There is quite a drop off there. I can't comment exactly. I can't, as I'm not in my office right now, so I apologize for that. Mr. Savis, I'm not sure if you can comment further on that.
Sure. Just to reiterate what I said before, like based on the contour mapping that was provided and the comments that were provided by the designer to me, you can see that in the northwest corner, it does drop off pretty hard. And from the aerial photography, particularly that drone shot that was shared by staff, you can see that there's a lot of mature vegetation located behind that building. As staff had indicated that there are policies in the official plan that seek to try to utilize the existing landscape with disturbing it as least as possible. And that's what is being attempted here today with the location of the proposed dwelling on the subject lands.
Okay. Well,
May I comment again on that?
Yes, Mr. Window, go ahead.
Yeah, well, the planner said if we move it directly north, I didn't say that. I said move it northeast 20 feet. And you would not have any trouble on the western part because it's all tableland there. You can quite comfortably fit the entire building onto the tableland without any increase in height. No need to blast from the way I look at it.
Okay, that's duly noted. And do we have anyone else from the public that wants to address this? Okay, and just before we open up for questions from the committee, there seems to be some question as to the feasibility of what the applicant is asking for in terms of the fact that there may be a possibility to either reduce or remove the need for all of these setbacks. Is there any will of the people on the committee to take time to have a look at that, or are we good to go with what's in front of us right now? Okay, we have one unhappy with setback.
I'm not happy with setback, and I think I might be able to arrange through the boat taxi ride if you wanted to get over there the next week.
Okay, that's even okay.
Or swim, yeah.
We could Mr. Jarvis will swim and the rest of us will and Mr. Pedcoda, do you have a preference one way or the other?
No, I'll defer to.
Okay. Yes, member Ribbit.
Question, the original permit that was approved, how different from the original permit is this application that we're looking at? Like, what is the original approval there was a variance that was approved already because they have their sleeping cabin. You can't get a sleeping cabin without a permit for a building permit. So there obviously was an original permit for this building that was approved. So what is the difference why is it coming back now? Did it move from the original? Is it bigger than the original? What's happened from that permit to today? It's not really mentioned.
Through the chair, I didn't look at the details of the previous permit. There was a permit issued for a detached dwelling as well as a sleeping cabin. My understanding is building cannot control once the permits are issued when the sleeping cabin is built versus the dwelling. So hopefully that answers your questions, but I did not look at the details of the previous dwelling. I don't know if a previous I don't know to answer your question.
When was the original?
Hi there, it's Christy McDonald again. I can comment on that for you. Our actual personal situation.
McDonald,
Yes.
Please wait until you're recognized before you.
I apologize.
Do you know how to raise your hand on this meeting? No, but there's a little button on Zoom, and that goes to our secretary. So, okay. Okay. Another. Okay. Okay, and yes, we have our CBO has a question or comment for the committee.
Just through the chair, and I only looked at this momentarily. From what I recall, it was a smaller structure and obviously met all the requirements of the zoning bylaw when it was issued.
Just to clarify that, it was a smaller structure than what is appearing as existing in the drawing?
What they're proposing, yes. So this
smaller than what's being proposed.
Exactly,
Okay.
yes.
All right, thank you. All right, just before we continue, we have a member of the public online that wishes to ask a question. So would you please identify yourself and and proceed with whatever questions or comments you may have. Did you see that person? Okay, we see Anthony Mitz appearing. We do not have you. Oh, there's your voice. And now if you have video.
I'll try here.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I'm the adjoining neighbor to this proposal here. I'm in agreement with it. I would rather not have him push his dwelling back. Obviously because it comes close to my property line. So it's I'm for the variance. You know, I think all of us on the island are quite like-minded about this, and I think it's a good thing.
Okay, I appreciate that input. I believe was there any other comments from people on that island? So it's just yourself, Mr. Mitz, that has offered a letter of support on the island.
Correct.
Did you have something, Shania, that you wanted to add to this?
Through the chair, I just wanted to point out, I believe that's the second property owner on that island who has now spoke to this. This is, I believe both neighboring property owners have now spoke at this meeting in support. I
Okay,
just wanted to
yeah.
clarify that.
Oh, Matt Reed, of course. All right. Thank you very much. We have Mr. Reed shown as in support as well. Okay, and I was just referring back to the committee again. And before we do that, I noticed that Ms. McDonald had wanted to add some information. So if you are still available online, please go ahead with whatever comment you may have had. I see your hand is up.
Hi there. Sorry about that. Miss McDonald again here. I just wanted to comment that our personal situation had changed since we originally put in those plans. That was our intention to do that. We had a primary residence within Barrie at the time, so this was going to be something that we could have. So our personal situation has changed, which I don't feel like I need to disclose in further depth, but that is why the original plans have changed since that time.
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. The plans are different than the ones that were presented by
No, the original.
No, when they originally submitted for the building permit and to get the sleeping quarters, what we had gotten the permitted building permits for have changed, and that's why we are going through this variance process with you. With the plans that you see in front of you are the current plans.
Okay, all right. So that's just a bit of history.
Yes.
Excuse me, am I still on?
You are, and you have to raise your hand normally, but in this,
I can't find the hand raise. It seems to have disappeared. But anyway, may I raise my hand?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm surprised that this sleeping cabin isn't on the plans here. Where is it? Is that the reason why they have to move it so far forward? Is it? I don't understand it.
And what are you looking at the moment? Is that
I'm looking at the site plan.
Is that
I don't see any current dwelling.
It's far up to the north, Jeff.
Far to the north. Oh, way up there. Okay. Okay. Is that little dotted line in the corner?
Okay. All right. Then I'll ask the planner to have a look at that. Is in fact the screen porch on the drawing that you have presented to committee?
Through the chair, the entire development proposal was depicted in the report as well as in the presentation.
And so the screen porch that Mr. Window was referring to is in that presentation?
Through the chair, that is correct.
No, I'm not talking about a screen porch. I'm talking about the fact that they have a sleeping cabin on that particular property. And I don't see it. That's all.
I didn't hear what he said.
The sleeping cabin does not show up.
Oh, okay. What you're saying is the sleeping cabin doesn't show up on the drawing.
Right.
But it's on the site plan. So is
not
this
on the site plan.
Okay, now we have people on the committee that are giving.
Chair Hill, if I could. May I speak?
Okay, we have member Hazelton wishing to comment. So if you would like to go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that on page 292 of the entire package, when you look at the survey that is there, well up to the north side of the property, there is an existing sleeping cabin, so it does show up. But if we're focused on the property area, I could see how that's perhaps not visible. But I do have a couple of questions, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
So, and I brought this topic to our CBO earlier in the week. I've had comments from the people in the community that indicate that there is a significant dock there. I see the dock is no longer part of the variance application. So I'm assuming then that it is not an oversized dock. And the neighbors that have contacted me have suggested that there's a bubbler on it, keeping the dock and the water, or sorry, the ice away from the dock. And I just wanted to try to get some clarity on that topic. I have some other questions as well.
Are you directing that to, oh, I see our planner is prepared to respond.
Through the chair, I believe the dock he is referring to is not.
You're muted.
No, she's fine.
Okay,
We hear her.
Sorry, through the chair, the dock that is being described is not that of these property owners. There is no dock constructed on this property, just to clarify that.
Okay, thank you. Again, because I wasn't able to get there, I was just having to rely on what some of the people in the community were telling me. So that's thank you for that answer. The next comment I wanted to make is I think we want to be careful of some of the comments that we've heard already about the perception that the building would be set back 20 meters because of where the water is today. Because in 2020, when we had ultra high water, the water was in fact at 177.4. In fact, it was above 177.4 frequently. And so the visual, I think, is not a relevant topic here. We have setback requirements, and I think we need to understand what those are. The third comment I wanted to make is Mr. Window, I think, was very astute in his observation, and I think we can all see on the survey that has been provided that there should be no issue with moving the building back so that it can be behind the 20-meter mark. The elevations that are showing suggest that the building could easily comply with that. Yes, there would be a drop off at the back of the building, but that's something that people can can work around from a design standpoint. But given that this is new construction and that there doesn't appear to be any hardship to move it back, it looks to me like it's purely a desire to have it closer. But it looks to me like it can comply with the bylaws.
Okay, and I thank you for that. I see Anthony Mitz has his hand raised. Is there additional comment you wish to add?
Yes, thank you. The dock in question is my dock. Permits have been pulled and issued and signed off on. I did have a bubbler on that dock this winter, obviously, because I was doing construction all winter. And comment number 2, again, I'm going to go back to if this building gets pushed back, it's going to be right on my property line. And that's, I don't think it's going to be more of an eyesore for me if this building gets pushed back.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And Ms. McDonald had her hand up at one point. Do you wish to add additional comment, Ms. McDonald?
I have nothing to add at this time. Thank you.
Okay, and see member Schmidt has his hand up.
Just looking at the 20-meter setback on that the one drawing that we were reviewing, the bay swoops in pretty aggressively behind that cottage. I don't know if you can see the distance between the 20-meter mark in the, we'll call it north of the property. That is a pretty significant swing in from there. I think in a perfect world, this cottage would have been fantastic where the current bunkie sleeping cabin is. But I do definitely see if that was pushed back, it's going to have to come significantly toward the east to even remotely come within the setbacks of the 20-meter high water mark on the, you see that on that? I'm on, you're making reference to on that plan?
Okay, well, thank
Kind of
you.
out on the peninsula there, right?
Okay, thank you for that. I think we got that message. Is there any other question or comment from the committee? One from Member Jarvis.
There's comment about a detached deck. Now, to me, a detached deck is a deck that's separate from the cottage entirely. Can you point out to me which is the detached deck and how it is detached?
Through the chair, on my screen, you'll see there's 2 stairs going down to a platform right here. This here is considered the freestanding deck.
And where is that if you look at the survey?
So in relation to the site plan, it's right here, this L shape.
And we're saying that's not, it doesn't qualify as being part of the cottage then? Because it's detached.
Through the chair, that is correct. It does meet the definition of a freestanding deck in the zoning bylaw.
That's something we're gonna have to look at. Just out of curiosity, then, its setback is what, 11 meters? Is that right, from the high water mark?
Through the chair, for freestanding decks, there is no setback
Yes,
requirement
I
from the high
recognize
water.
that. But this deck's setback is 11 meters from the high water mark.
Through the chair, that is correct, yes.
Okay.
All right, then we've had a number of questions and comments. A number of people have mentioned that there are questions unanswered or they need more information, and as a result of that, we are considering deferring this application. But before I do that, I just want to get a feedback from. Let's start with the 2 people that we have online, whether or not they are in favor of deferral or should we proceed. Member Schmidt, defer or move on? And citizen as well.
I think that I'm comfortable with moving forward, but I will support the feeling of the.
We'll get to that. And Member Hazelton, defer or move forward?
Deferral, and if you're looking for reasons, happy to offer some, but in favor of deferral.
Okay, and then that's good. And just here in person, I see one hand up for deferral.
No, question.
A question.
Question.
So the question is deferral.
I'm sorry, but something came forward. I just have one question. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the planner, with the bigger building and with the sleeping cabin already built, is the coverage still 6%? Because I don't know what size that sleeping cabin is compared to the increase in the building size.
Through the chair, the 6% includes the sleeping cabin and the proposed dwelling.
Do we know how big the sleeping cabin is? Because it's not on here, so. Okay, but it includes the new build and the existing sleeping cabin, which we don't know. Thank you.
Member Ribbit, are you in favor of deferral or should we move forward? Okay. Member Predko.
I could support a deferral.
And Member Jarvis. Big D. Okay. Therein, I see that we have an appetite for a deferral. And the reason for the deferral is to firm up some of the setbacks that are being requested on this application with a view to whether or not the topography of the island and the proposed location of this cottage is such that the applicant could move the cottage to bring some of the, or reduce some of the setbacks that are there. And
Questions? Is the property staked? Like if we were to go to site?
do we know whether the property is staked? Miss McDonald's online. Is your property staked? So we can see where the proposed development will take place?
I'll let Ms. McDonald answer that. I can't answer that for you. I'm assuming if there was a recent topographic survey of some sort that there probably is some flagging on there, but I'll defer to Ms. McDonald as to whether or not she knows that for sure or not.
Get there. And I'm not hearing anything from Miss McDonald, so I'll go.
Yes, I do believe the property is surveyed, and I'm not sure exactly. I apologize. I don't know the correct answer. If the current building layout is staked out on the current rocks at this time.
Okay, it's a big help to the committee when we are looking at a proposal like this to be able to see markings on the ground, whether they're paint, stakes, tape, whatever, to indicate where the proposed dwelling would be. So
Excuse I've just the building is not staked, but it can be staked out within 1 week and to provide future clarity.
That is excellent. Appreciate that. Member Hazelton, you had some additional reasons for deferral that you might present at this time?
The only one was, it sounds to me like the original building that was where a permit was issued is different from what we are seeing here. And I would just encourage the applicant to consider reconfiguring things in addition to moving things back, so that the bylaws can be met. Given it's a new build, we should be trying as much as possible to do that. And I think that there should be some consideration for that. Thank you.
Okay, good point. So with that, I will read the resolution, and I'm going to call it a revised resolution. And Madam Secretary, you have enough reasons for deferral on there, or do you need more? We're good with that? Okay. It's moved by Member Matthews, seconded by Member Schmidt. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby defers application A24-12 for 32 Island 810 to allow the committee opportunity to review some of the information provided. And we will, the applicant can deal with the planning department to find out where, when the application can be brought before the committee once again. So all those in favor of deferral, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, and I see the 2 hands online. The motion for deferral is carried and the application is deferred. Thank you. Our next application is A24-13 for 202 Lavalley Way. To the planner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Application A24-13 is 202 Lavalley Way. Ken and Shauna Sommer are the applicants in this minor variance request. As you can see in the location map, the subject property is just outside of the Honey Harbor coastal waterfront community, and it is within the South Bay Special Policy Area as identified in section F586 of the Georgian Bay Official Plan. An application for a minor variance was submitted to the township on February 2nd as a result of consultation with planning staff. At the present time, there is an existing sleeping there is an existing dwelling, boathouse, and sleeping cabin that is to be removed. The proposed sleeping cabin is to be located further away from the water than the existing structure. As you can see in the pictures on the screen, the proposed sleeping cabin is to be in this area here and also in here. The proposed development request is for, as stated, a sleeping cabin with a requested minimum interior side yard setback of 2.5 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw requires 5 meters, and the maximum gross floor area of the sleeping cabin to be 70 square meters, whereas the maximum gross floor area is 56 square meters in the zoning bylaw. The minimum front yard setback permits a minimum front yard setback in the special policy zone of 30 meters, and the owner is requesting 30 meters. As you can see on the screen, this is a picture that you didn't see because I found this morning in preparation of the meeting this morning. This is the existing house that is here right now. As you can see, I'm circling. Right in behind the house is where the existing septic system is. And further to the south is where they're currently proposing a new leaching bed. So therefore, the locations of a proposed sleeping cabin is very limited based on the location of the septic system. So as stated, the sleeping cabin is going to be a slight larger than what is permitted in zoning bylaw, 2 bedrooms, bathroom, and a games room. So the minimum interior side yard setback required is 5 meters. The owners are proposing 2.5. Maximum gross floor area of a sleeping cabin is 56 square meters. The owners are proposing 70 square meters. And in section 6.2, table 6.3, in the exceptions, the minimum front yard setback in this zone is 30 meters, and they are proposing 20 meters, which is a standard waterfront setback in most SR zones. Staff are recommending an additional condition if the committee approves the minor variance application, and is that a tree preservation plan be prepared by a licensed arborist and submitted to the township prior to the issuance of a building permit. Staff are recommending approval of the application, subject to the recommended conditions and based on a review of the relevant policies, as the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement, meets section 45(1) of the Planning Act, and in my opinion, does represent good planning.
Okay, thank you for that. Has there been any correspondence in this application?
1 letter of objection was received from Michael Bell, and 1 letter of no objection was received from Nelson Guyot, provided a few additional trees are planted alongside the new sleeping cabin.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present, and do they wish to address the committee with any comments?
Good afternoon. I'm the owner of 202 Lavalley Way, Ken Sommer. I did prepare a letter that I can read to you this morning. Good morning, members of the committee, neighbors, and friends. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present this application on behalf of my family and I. As you've already seen the application and plans, I won't get into the details of that, but rather explain the reasons that we have requested these minor variances. Our property currently has a small sleeping cabin located directly beside our cottage. The current sleeping cabin was originally poorly constructed and is in even worse condition now. It is to a point that repairs are not feasible. So our goal is to reconstruct a sleeping cabin and locate it further from the shoreline behind our cottage and to increase its size. Our cottage is a modest size of about 117 square meters. When my wife Shauna and I, along with our 2 children, Kate and Tim, host our parents, the space is limited. In addition, our parents are aging, and the goal is to build a sleeping cabin that would better accommodate them, and in particular my mom, as she has significant mobility issues. The increase in size will allow us to make the bedroom slightly larger to accommodate a walker and the washroom to have accessibility features. The proposed sleeping cabin is as far back as we can reasonably locate it. Our lot has a significant rocky incline behind the current proposed sleeping cabin, preventing us from locating it further back. At the top of the incline, there is a Hydro 1 easement, and beyond that is the location of our septic leaching bed and wetland area. Directly behind the cottage to the east of our driveway is our septic tank, pumping chamber, and then there's an electrical pole and line that feed our 2 neighboring cottages. For these reasons, we are requesting the shoreline setback reduction. Please do keep in mind it is 6.5 meters or 21 feet further back from the shoreline than the current sleeping cabin.
The reason for reduced side yard setback is that the proposed sleeping cabin is located directly against our driveway, which cannot be moved further east due to rock formations. As I recognize this affects our neighbor Nelson and his family, I've communicated with him, and his only request is that we plant a few trees along the side of the proposed sleeping cabin, to which I have agreed. Other than that, he has no concerns, and I believe you have the email from Nelson. We did receive written concerns from Mr. Bell. I didn't know if the committee wanted us or me to address each of these individual concerns, or no, it's better to not. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any member of the public present that wishes to comment on this? Please come forward, identify yourself with name and address, and any questions or comments you wish.
Everybody hear me? Good morning, and thanks for the opportunity. My name is Jamie Cooling. I'm property owner of the cottage directly across from the applicant by a distance of about 200 meters across the waterway. We look directly upon him from our side, and our property address is 9708 Georgian Bay shoreline. So we've had this property for about 48 years, and we've also built a bunkie, and I don't have a problem with anybody building a bunkie. I think it's their right if it fits into all the parameters that are out there. My problem is I wanted to build a bunkie closer to the water, and we weren't allowed to, so I didn't. And unfortunately, we had to build up to the back of our property with about 40 steps to get up to our bunkie. So it's quite an inconvenience, and I don't want to impose that inconvenience on anybody. But what I want to get forward here on behalf of my partner and my wife as well, who's an environmentalist. And if you all turn behind you and look at your logo up there, the Township of Georgian Bay is featured with a sweat pine. You know, everybody is up here because of pine and water. It seems to be what everybody migrates to this area for. I don't need to tell anybody that. So my biggest concern is looking directly across at Ken's place, who I don't have any qualms with whatsoever. We're neighbors. My biggest concern, and again, on behalf of my wife, who is an environmentalist, is that trees are replanted, because if he's going to remove the single bunkie that is currently there, that will leave a gap in space. If he builds the bunkie he's proposing behind it, my concern is that anything between that bunkie and the reduced setback to the shoreline is replanted with trees, or there's an assessment similar to what Nelson has requested from him due to the side setback reduction, is that there's trees replanted in front. And that is simply our concern at this point. I don't have any other concerns with the size of it. In fact, I look at it, and if you have the plans, if you look at it, and if Ken builds this, what is it, 60 meters from the shoreline as opposed to the 90, I'm not sure if I'm going to see more of that bunkie or less of that bunkie, depending on where the trees are and how the trees have to come off of this property. So it's not a concern whether the bunkie is built or not. It's what is done after the bunkie is built to give it that image of what we currently have over there. I look on to 100-foot lots across from me. If you look at your diagram, if you look across from Ken's property, we're 300-foot lots, and Ken and everybody on that shoreline looks across and sees nothing but forest. We look across and see nothing but 100-foot lots and more people taking down more and more trees. And it has been a concern before. There's a couple new cottages going in over there right now, and trees are being removed. It's often said if you remove one tree and you're standing underneath it, you don't notice anything when you're in a forest. But it's not the case if you're sitting at my side of the lake looking across and you see that tree and the way that it digs out of the skyline. One tree can make a big difference. And I'm not the tree hugging guy that you might think I am because I'm mentioning trees so much. It's more about the view. And if I don't say anything now, trees take 50 years to grow back and to get it back to where the natural state is. So that's my only concern, is that it's not just clear and make room for vision right down to the water.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Is there any other member of the public present that has a question for the applicant, for the neighbor, the committee? Nobody online? Okay, with that, I will close the public session, bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And Member Jarvis.
Thank you, Chair Hill. I'm going to bring everybody's attention to an earlier application we got up on Haskets Drive where the side yard setback was an issue for us. And it was a similar situation from the standpoint of distance. Now the property in question had a higher level than the property that was complaining about it. But again, we have 5-meter setbacks to our neighbors in our bylaws to allow for a high level of privacy. And I think that's a legitimate bylaw to have in place, and we should be considering that. So reducing it, in my mind, is an issue. I see the neighbor has agreed that planting trees would be okay by them if this, and he would allow it to go ahead. That doesn't allow for future owners of these properties. I think it's really important we stay within our bylaws in that regard. I have one other question, that's to the applicant. There's a letter on file indicating that this property is used as an Airbnb. Do you have any comment with regards to that?
Yes, I can comment to that. My wife and I have in total rented it out 8 times. In the past year and a half, the first year I was up at the cottage 50 out of 52 weekends. So it is for sure primarily our family's oasis up here. I grew up renting cottages, and that's what grew my love for Georgian Bay. So that's why we purchased the cottage up here. I would like to continue to do that to allow other families to use it. We do vet our renters quite well, and we have a policy that we don't rent to anybody under 25.
So you're responsible for the high level of noise that's being complained about?
Quite possibly, yes. You have my apologies for that.
I was just curious on that one. Okay. Again, my comments still stand with regards to the setback. I don't know how we can accommodate that, whether reduced size of the building would help or maybe moving it a little closer to shore and allowing you to tuck it in more. I don't know. But that and the previous owner's comments about planting trees in front, I think if we could request that, that might help as well. Thank you.
Member Predko.
Chair. Thank you, Deputy Clerk, and through the chair. Just to comment on Councillor Jarvis's comments, the next door cottage isn't in line with the proposed bunkie. So if we moved it forward, it would actually be closer to the next door neighbor's cottage. So I think while it is encroaching on that side yard, I think given the location of the buildings in the neighbor's property, it's a relatively appropriate place for it, given all of the other constraints on the property. And actually, I would also like to suggest that if the applicant and the planning department are favorable to making an amendment to the conditions, we could add planting from an arborist at the front yard as well to help screen from the waterfront. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just making a note of that. Any other member? I'm sorry. Okay. Member Hazelton, apparently you would like to comment. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question first to either the owner or the planning. There's something that is labeled a tank right now down near shore. Curiosity, what is that?
We're having a little problem with the volume of your voice, Mr. Hazelton. If you could speak up a little and maybe ask that question again.
Sure. So down near the shoreline, right beside a building, there is something called a tank. What kind of tank is that?
Okay, the applicant will reply.
Yeah, I can comment to that. That was a previous holding tank that has since been removed. We applied for a septic on-site septic system that has been installed. So there's a new septic tank behind the current cottage.
Thank you for that.
Is that what is drawing that Ms. McQuaid showed earlier?
That's
So
correct.
The tank that is on the drawing is currently in place.
The one beside the boathouse at the front shoreline has been removed, but there is a new septic tank behind the existing cottage.
And that's the one that's in the drawing that Ms. McQuaid. Okay, good, thank you.
Okay,
And-
so another, just the, more comments and questions. Following along from Councillor Jarvis's comments, you know, a larger side yard setback would be easily done if the sleeping cabin was changed a little bit. You know, the sleeping cabin right now is 728 square feet. Our sleeping cabins in the bylaws, 600 square feet, as far as I understand. So I'm not sure that the sleeping cabin needs to be that large. I do hear that, you know, there were some kind of personal designs with accommodating wheelchairs and so on, but, you know, if they're planning on putting in a 2-bedroom sleeping cabin, that would be easily done in a much smaller footprint, and then they could move it away from the side yard, and they still wouldn't be encroaching on the driveway, but, you know, at the end of the day, they might have to shorten their driveway a little bit. So I think that once again, if they can comply, they should, and I'm not hearing any hardships from a building perspective. One other kind of just a comment. I think we want to be careful about being lulled into thinking whether or not there is a neighbor who is concerned or not concerned. So, you know, with a small setback for the side yard, if the neighbor today says, I don't have a problem with it, neighbors today are not neighbors tomorrow. And I think that these bylaws and setbacks are all put in place for the long-term perspective and not for the short-term perspective. So I think we want to be aware of that as well. And I love the comments that have been suggested already about revegetation. I mean, truly, if this is a sleeping cabin, then, you know, revegetating the area between it and the waterfront is a good thing. And, you know, if it's being used as a sleeping cabin, then the predominant use of the property when you look out over the water will be from the cottage. And so, again, setting it back, changing it a little bit, and making it smaller so it can comply with the sizing and setbacks. I think these are all good things to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Member Schmidt has your hand up. Please go ahead.
This is one of those applications where I almost want to ask sort of a show of hands of who was able to put eyes on this property in real life. When I was there, there's significant tight setbacks all through that area. I would argue that the 2.5 meters that's currently there would be more consistent than inconsistent with what's there. And I understand and respect the comment about future neighbors, but the future neighbor would also have the choice if they want to buy that or not. That's going to be something that's to the detriment of the current owner that's in support of it, not. So I just want to, you know, flavor that appropriately. But I saw the property, I saw the setbacks. I think the neighbor's shed is actually encroaching on this property. There's very little setbacks to the east side of this property. I think everything's a little bit snug in there as it is. So I don't have an issue with the setback on this particular one. I'd rather have it back further on the property than have it move forward and further away from the property line for visual impact. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you, Member Schmidt. Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will apologize that my computer battery has died. So, no, I don't have an HP either, so I've got an Acer. So I don't think it's. Yeah.
Way to go.
And my personal battery is starting to die too. So my concern is there are a lot. I was there this morning. I bet you there's 6 or 8 70 to 100 foot pine trees that are going to have to come down. And you can have all the vegetation program you want, but you're never going to replace those trees. So that is my major concern. I don't know if it's a planning issue, and I'm getting a big shake from Ms. McCabe, and I appreciate that, but it is a concern. I think it's definitely better than what the sleeping cabin that's there currently. I don't think I want to put my worst enemy in that cabin right now. So I just wondered, the other comment or suggestion was you have a sea can up there, and is that a spot that a cabin could go? It's then hides the view from the lake, and you don't need to cut down a bunch of trees. It might be a solution for everybody. It's a little bit more of a hike from the cottage, but it just was my view when I was there this morning.
Yeah, and just before you answer that, Ms. McCabe, could I ask you to bring up the drawing, the one that you just found today that shows hopefully that area where the sea can is on there. So it'll be,
Mr. Chair, the back of the property, I don't have it right to the road.
well, this is not that far back.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fairly close. So it would make it easier for those that didn't have an opportunity to go on site to see, and it may lead into a better understanding. Okay. Now, can you make your screen large so that no, I'm just, if you could just do a slideshow rather than.
Oh, I see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
I can provide a quick comment there. The sea can is currently located on a hydro easement. So we cannot build a cabin on the sleep.
Yeah. Are the location of the weeping bed that you've got, where is it in relation to where that sea can is?
The septic system actually pumps up beyond the sea can further to the rear of the property. And there's a clearing at the top there that was flat enough to put a filter bed in.
That's quite a ways up.
It's quite a ways up, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry to interrupt there. Would you? Oh, go ahead. Is there anything else? Okay. Then any other questions from the committee? Okay, and Member Jarvis.
Yeah, I just reiterate this concept of revegetating the front area in front of that cabin. If there could be some sort of agreement that would be done, I'd be more inclined to accept this this application. So if we could come up with some way of remediating that, that would help me significantly.
The one drawing that was there, I was just gonna show through you, Mr. Chair, through the waterfront. I mean, you can see there's so much rock. I'm not sure how you can revegetate it. I mean, he's already got a lot of grassed area here, and this is where the sleeping cabin's going. I don't know where you're looking at, like right in here?
Yeah.
Okay.
That rock is loose rock. I don't know what I know I have been out to the property. It's one of the properties I did get to. I don't know what your bedrock situation is in front of the proposed cabin, but if there's soil, I think we should be planting. The tree's there.
Mr. Cooling, you had something to add?
There we go. I was less concerned about where the sandy beach is and more concerned where the current sleeping cabin is. Obviously, that's going to leave a void when that's taken out of there. And then, so there's anything from basically the fire pit back to where the front door of this cabin the new build cabin would be my concern that gets replanted. And I'm not talking tons of trees, but you can see down by the waterway, that's not where the cabin's going that she just identified. The cabin's going in behind that red dot. No, that's the neighbor's place. Right under the flagpole there to the right, you can see some red.
Yeah, that's
the
original
current, and he's going to put in
and
behind.
This is where the new one's going. In behind, if you look at this picture, the second picture, you can see it's further back.
Is that Nelson's place, the one to the right there?
No, this is their property.
Green color one.
And so just while we're on that spot, and if we could put that other drawing back up again, Ms. McCabe.
Your sleeping cabin now is cream.
And I would ask the applicant that if you look at this drawing, is the location of we don't have the new sleeping cabin superimposed on this drawing, but is it not in where those large mature pine trees are? So would it be correct to assume that they are all going to go in order to put that in there? Or the majority of them?
Oh, I got it. Yeah, I can speak to the large pines. It would be my preference actually to move it slightly forward, which would enable us to maintain a couple of large pines that are behind the proposed cabin or in the rear of the proposed cabin. I was under the impression that we had to move it as far back on the property as we could to maintain zoning compliance as best we can. But if it suits the committee to move it 5 or 10 feet forward to maintain those large pines, I would love to do that.
Well, as an alternative, you are taking out the existing sleeping cabin that's there, which is going to leave a void between those mature pines and the existing cottage. And there is already an area there where you've extended the driveway down that seems to be fairly flat. Would that not be to your advantage to put the cottage, the new sleeping cabin closer to the cottage and on already disturbed land?
That would push the sleeping cabin quite a ways forward. And there's bedrock right there, so I don't know that trees will.
Well, the bedrock is about the same grade as what your existing cottage is, so the sleeping cabin would sit virtually on the same level, if not a little bit higher.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding.
The question would be, would it not be to your advantage to build the sleeping cabin closer to your existing cottage on land that's already disturbed and avoid having to move those trees?
It would be quite close to the shoreline then, as is our current one.
No, it would be even further back from the water than where your existing cottage is. No, behind it, further back, where it's cleared. We just showed that the leaching bed is up behind where. Is the tank there now?
Yes.
Okay.
In addition, there's a hydro pole that serves the 2 neighboring cottages. And the lines run almost directly in front of the proposed sleeping cabin.
Oh, is that right? So there's not enough room for the hydro lines? Okay.
No.
All right.
If I may. Through your chair, yeah, and there are distances that they must maintain from all of those hydro lines as well as the easement under building code. So getting closer to that area is not a good idea.
Okay, very good. All right, I think we've covered every aspect of this, other than the question that member Rivet might have.
Right, so my, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm again concerned with the setback. The property is very open to, as you know, you come in the driveway to the right, I'm not sure what direction that is. The cottage is already, almost 2 meters from that property line. So now they're encroaching on the other side. And the sleeping cabin is 150 square feet larger than it's supposed to be. And it almost looks like it's 2-story. It's, 8 meters tall. So it is quite large. If the design were smaller, perhaps it could actually, I don't mind it being, where it's back now. It could go a little bit further. And if it were smaller, it could actually sit a little more to the center away from the property line. You still have lots of room. The property is already disturbed in the middle because of the sleeping cabin that's there. So moving the new cabin more towards the center is not going to disrupt the property anymore. I just don't see why it can't move to meet the setback and a bit smaller. I mean, the cottage itself is small, but you can't necessarily replace your cottage space with a sleeping cabin. The sleeping cabin is supposed to be, accessory to the main dwelling. So I would prefer to see this move to meet the side yard setback since there is a dispute. It's already encroaching on the side yard on the other side. Try and bring something into conformity. I would prefer a deferral.
Okay, thank you all for your input. I think we've covered every aspect of this. Is there again, like I've asked before, if there is a favor for a deferral for more information or for any reason that you may have, please let me know. Otherwise, we will vote to approve or deny the application. So
Chair
just
Hill?
quickly, for those two members that are online, are we good to go forward, or do you have a wish to defer?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please go ahead, Member Hazelton.
So given that we, it sounds like everybody wants to offer ideas about what could be done that would be better than what appears to be there. You know, you've got a driveway. It's potentially a perfect location on which to build. It looks like maybe there's a turnaround at the end, but you've got a turnaround, looks like, you know, another 50 feet back. If you were to build a smaller sleeping cabin that conformed to the size of sleeping cabins in the bylaws of 600 square feet, you could probably put that at the end of the driveway, not disturb anything, and still have easy access. You could drive up to the thing with your car, but you've got your turnabout back by the hydro line. So I think, again, everybody has different ideas here, but if the objective is to, as much as possible, comply with the zoning bylaws, that would solve the side yard setback, that would solve the building size, and it would also solve the fact that you wouldn't be having cut down trees because it would just sit on the end of that driveway area. So I think that there are lots of things that could be considered here to make this a better outcome. Thank you.
Okay, so let's, we need to move forward here. So let's just be clear on this. There seems, sorry?
Just one quick point of clarification, if you don't mind. I just want to clarify with the owner, in front of the proposed location, is that another hydro line that's running directly in front? So just everybody, while you're making a decision, just be aware that I know you guys want to move it and that, but please, all those dotted lines are hydro lines. And they have to maintain distances from those hydro lines. It is. I don't know if Deb can bring it up. Right, it's right across the end of the driveway, and then over
Closest to the Lavalley Drive, or the end that's closest to the water?
his drive, closest to the water. You can see if Deb could bring that up. If not, I can share my screen. Right. And there needs to be maintained a 5-meter distance from the swing of that line for the building. So just keep that in mind where you see all these hydro lines when you want, you know, moving and that. Just be aware that's not it, Deb. It's the one with the blue on it. With the blue, it's the drawing with the blue. Yeah, there you go. If you can you blow it up by any chance? If not,
yeah,
I can. But okay, so you can see there. Yeah. So as you can see, and then move it. All those dotted lines are all hydro lines. Oh. Oh, it's playing.
Oh, you're twitchy.
Sorry, those are all
where's the
hydro.
one closest to the water?
So Chair Hill, another comment, if I may.
Oh. That really changes a lot. I didn't realize that and on that drawing, where is the septic tank? Yeah.
Right in this area where I'm.
Is that where it is?
Yeah, the septic tank, the septic line, the pump chamber, everything will be probably in that area.
All right, well, that really adds a lot of clarification. It is, in my humble opinion, not too many options of where to put that sleeping cabin.
Chair Hill?
Yes, please go ahead, Member Hazelton.
So if the side yard setback is only 2.5 meters, and as our CBO just said, it's got to be 5 meters back from the hydro line, then the building location is already a fail because it has 2 points where it's not likely going to be 5 meters back from the hydro line. So the building has to be moved no matter what. And I still offer that a much smaller building sitting on top of the driveway would probably solve the whole problem.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Not that it matters at this point in the game, but if we could superimpose where those large trees are on there, but that doesn't matter either, because, you know, you got the hydro lines there and you got the septic tank. So, yeah, I'm seeing, this as different eyes based on that information. So, again, I will ask and we'll just go forward. Are we good to go forward, or do we want a deferral? And I'm just, quick show of hands on deferral. And ooh. Let's have a, yes, fortunately there are 7 in here. So moving forward is the balance. So Tony, and did you have a further comment?
Yes, thank you, Chair Hill. I'm listening loud and clear to the our building department, our planning department, and the limitations of this property. And I'd like to reiterate, 2.5 meter setback would be more of a conformity than an issue in this particular area. I think we have to look at the setbacks on either side of this property. And I wish that the survey that we have here showed the neighboring setbacks. None of them are at 5 meters. The neighbor that's most affected by this has written the letter of support. I see no purpose in a deferral. And hopefully, hopefully we can get this across the finish line.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just on that point, the neighbor who's going to be on the same side of the property as this new sleeping cabin has already agreed to support the application based on Mr. Sommer's putting some vegetation between the two of them. So you know, that's the green light that I'm seeing here. So based on our vote and so on, we are going to go ahead with the proposal as is. And I will read the resolution. Moved by member Rivet, seconded by member Predko. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves application number A23-13 to zoning bylaw A2014-75 as amended for 202 Lavalley Way to facilitate construction of a sleeping cabin with a reduced interior side yard setback, an increase in the gross floor area, and a reduction in the minimum front yard setback as follows. Minimum interior side yard setback of 2.2 meters, gross floor area of 70 square meters, and minimum front yard setback of 20 meters. The above noted approval is subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that's subject to this decision. And 2, that this decision applies only to the proposed new single detached dwelling as indicated in Schedule A, attached to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear on the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized. And 3, that a tree preservation plan be prepared by a licensed arborist and submitted to the township prior to the issuing of a building permit, and that this decision expires 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for this development. And the following reasons are indicated on here. That first of all, that the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw will be maintained. The general intent and purpose of the official plan will be maintained, and that the requested variances are desirable for the appropriate development of the subject lands, and the requested variances are minor in nature. All those in You're being superseded by our Director of Planning, so, Member, Whitlip, or Mr. Whitlip, please proceed.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, and sorry, just a minor correction, I apologize. Condition 2, reference the proposed single detached dwelling. That should read a sleeping cabin.
We are having technical difficulties with our typographical staff, which I apologize for. The person who is guilty is not here, or else we would chastise them publicly. Yes, I got that. So our Secretary Treasurer will amend that when the actual. And Member Jarvis.
There's no need to reread the motion. But there was an item in it's not on the motion we're looking at, so you've changed it to do with an arborist. And what was that one condition with regards to? Hmm?
Yeah. She sent an email. Yeah.
I ain't got time to read emails. I'm in a meeting, for crying out loud.
Yeah. All right, just so we are clear from this point forward, we are about to vote and we're going to indicate by raising our hand. And when we raise our hand, we are voting for approval of this application. So are we clear on that? So I would call the vote. All those in favor of approval of application number A24-13 for 202 Lavalley Way, please raise their hand. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Sorry it took us quite this long, but we now are far better informed about your property than you ever wanted us to be, I'm sure. So thank you. Our next and final application is, we're going to have to take another bio break, and we will re-engage as soon as Member Matthews returns.
At his discretion.
Yeah. Thank you. We are back. And the final application for today is A 24-14 for 20 Island 280 6 Mile Lake. To the planner, please.
Thank you, and through the chair. The applicant's name is David Thorpe. Seem to be frozen. There we go. The purpose and effect of the application is to facilitate the upgrading of an existing septic system and recognize the following: a decrease in minimum front yard setback of 20 meters, whereas section 4.1.2 allows for a minimum front yard setback of 30 meters. I'm still not sharing, apparently. Technical difficulties. Let's try this. Yeah. We good now?
Can you hit the F? There we go. Great. Thank you.
All right, so the location map, as you can see, it's located on an island on 6 Mile Lake with a lot frontage of 5,787 square meters and a lot frontage of 237.74 meters. Here's the site plan. As you can see, outlined in red is the area of the existing septic system, which will also be the area of the proposed septic system expansion. Here's some site photos of that area of the existing septic system and where will be the proposed septic system. As you can see, it's pretty densely vegetated around the area of the septic system. Some of you may be familiar with this photo. This is a photo of the shoreline of the property. As you can see, the applicant's dwelling is located here, and the proposed septic system will be up and back this way. Obviously, it won't be visible from the shoreline. Here's a view of the property's existing, I guess I would say, vegetation on the property. This just gives you an idea of how densely vegetated the property is in relation to the buffer area between the proposed septic system and the shoreline. Based on the information submitted and a review of the provincial policy statement, the District of Muskoka official plan, the Township of Georgian Bay official plan, and the Township of Georgian Bay zoning bylaw, it is staff's opinion that the proposed minor variance application is consistent and in conformity with the relevant policies and provisions and represents good planning. Therefore, staff are recommending approval of the application as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Has there been any correspondence on this application?
One letter of support was received from Ann Thompson Roberts.
And is the applicant present or online? I see Mr. Thorpe is in Tennyson. Do you wish to add anything to the planner's comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just that actually the official applicant is Georgian Bay Home and Cottage. John Funston has been building septic systems and has inspected this system. It is in good shape, but it isn't going to be big enough for our future requirements. We are looking at a sleeping cabin. We have done a pre-application consultation for that. There are no variances on that at all. But one of the issues, of course, is expanding the existing septic system. So I don't know whether there's anything that John is there or would have any thing to say.
Okay, I appreciate that. Is there anyone from the public that's present that wishes to address this application? Okay, seeing none and no one online, I will bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And any questions or comments? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't see it on the screen. They look pretty reasonable from what I remember. I just have a question, I guess, to our CBO. Is this is still within the guidelines of the Ontario Building Code, correct?
Yes, they would not receive a permit if it was not.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh.
It is opined in the background of this that a new system would only need to be set back 18 meters. I've got that. That is, thank you.
Through your chair, no replacement or enlargement has to meet the required setback in the zoning bylaw of 30 meters.
So no matter what, so what's this?
Unless they had an approval and were replacing existing like for like, but they're increasing the size of it. So where it currently is, it does have an MOE approval, but because they want to enlarge it, that's why they require the variance, because technically they're supposed to meet the 30-meter setback.
Okay, okay, I understand. There is a paragraph in here that says, seems to me to say otherwise. Maybe we can deal with that later, but I'm not going to worry about it. I just, it will adhere to the OBC. Do we have a township requirement when it comes to septics or not?
Just the zoning bylaw and the Ontario Building Code.
But we don't have any different septic requirements than the OBC.
The setback.
Is the setback. Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Nothing online. I will read the resolution. Moved by member Schmidt, seconded by member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A24-14 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 20 Island 280 6 Mile Lake to facilitate the expansion of a legally existing septic system, recognizing a decreased minimum front yard setback of 20 meters. The above noted approvals are subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And that this decision applies only to the proposed building as indicated on Schedule A attached to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear on the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized. And that this decision expires 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for the development. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. I have an additional resolution moved by member Rivet and seconded by member Hazelton. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment does now adjourn at 1:41 p.m. until April 12th, 2024 at 10 a.m. or at the call of the chair. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. The motion is carried. Thank you and enjoy your long weekend.
Thank you, Stephen, for picking up the slack on